What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to Redemption with Jaden. How about that new intro, huh? I mean, the new logo is cool, and the new intro, of course, kind of had to come with it. And I had to get a little bit creative because that's not really my forte. A friend of mine created the logo for me, which is awesome. It's the same person who created my first logo, but the intro I actually did myself, and it's I thought it was pretty cool. It came together nicely. At least to the standard of where I would put my graphic design skills and abilities. I actually sent it to John Hendricks. He kind of got a little preview. I kind of wanted some of his feedback, and he was the inspiration for the transition at the end there to kind of make it, pop a little more than just a fade to black. So thanks to him for that, and that should be the intro that you guys are seeing from this point forward. So hopefully you like it, and the new logo as well, which I've been hanging on to for a while, and I'm excited to finally get it going because I actually have some sleeves and a playmat and playmats that have it on it. So I've had those almost since Nationals. I was hoping to actually unveil it all at Nationals last year. Like, I had the logo before then, but I didn't have the intro, and the playmat and sleeves and everything actually didn't come in time. So I was like, all right, well, that stuff didn't come in time, so we'll save it for some time in the future when I actually am able to do the intro and I have the sleeves and everything, or I can do like a bigger unveiling, So, Mr. Classic, or Classic Weekend, I should say, but mostly Mr. Classic. That's kind of the driving portion of the tournament. That's going to be the unveiling. So if you're watching this the day of its release, then Mr. Classic is just about to happen, just around the corner. It'll be tomorrow, I guess. And if you're watching it later, then, well, either you're missing out on Mr. Classic or you missed out and you'll have to look forward to next year's, at least for Classic Weekend 2023. I'm guessing, or I've heard, I guess, that it's supposed to be an annual thing, or rumor has it at the very least. So anyways, what are we doing for this week's video? As there's no verses in the title. Like, I'm not actually going to be playing against anyone. It's just going to be me. So sorry to disappoint anyone who is hoping to see a guest on the channel today, but this is actually just going to be an informational video that's kind of setting you up for Classic Weekend, and it's going to hopefully not be terribly long, but this is the intro, or the intro and the video are going to be recorded at the same time right now, so I haven't actually recorded it yet, and I'm hoping that I'll just be able to kind of go straight through it, not have to do any editing, because I've still got packing to do to leave for Mr. Classic, Classic Weekend, and so I'm hoping to get this done pretty quickly here. But what I'm going to do, kind of in preparation for Classic Weekend, and maybe it's already happened, but that's okay. I'll forgive you for watching the video not right after it came out. But if it's already happened, it's still useful information. But if you're watching a Classic gameplay, if you're watching my live stream, which will be on the channel here over the weekend, at least that's the plan anyway, assuming all the technology things work out. At the very least, I will record the games, but the plan is to live stream. So I haven't tested my new computer, which, by the way, I'm recording on my new computer. I guess half new. The case is new, the power supply is new, and the graphics card is new. The rest of it's the same. But I'm recording on that for the first time, so hopefully there aren't any issues there. But that's also going to be what I'm using for live streaming on Classic Weekend, so hopefully that goes well. But anyways, in preparation for Classic Weekend, today's video is going to just be a real quick, 5,000 feet overview of every single scroll card in the game. Every single one printed. I'm just gonna whip through a lot of them, these cards. I guess I'm just gonna go through really fast and Maybe not even talk about some of them. I'll just go like, oh, nope, unplayable. Like, I mean, it's playable in draft and when you're just getting started and getting used to the cards, put it in your deck for sure. But we're kind of talking at like a competitive level. Like if I'm watching the live stream from Classic Weekend, I'm going to want to recognize certain cards. Like I can expect to see certain cards being played at a high level, either in Scrolls only or in Classic. And so for a lot of the cards, maybe I'll try to make a distinction between like, okay, this card is good in Classic, which means it's good in, even with the rotation card pool, cards like Falling Away, Haemon's Plot, Uzza, those are cards that you'll expect to see in Classic decks across the entire card pool. And then most of the cards that I mentioned will be cards that are playable in Scrolls only, but not really in Classic. Like they're outshined by a lot of the newer cards, the cards on the new card face. So I guess right now I'll just mention, as of the release of this video, the names for the formats are Classic, which is the entire card pool, every card ever printed, both on the old card face, which has the scroll, and on the scroll over here, and the new card face, which doesn't have you probably know what that looks like. Doesn't have the words on the art. It's got a little text box down here with both the special ability and the reference verse. And rotation is the format with only rotation cards, only cards on the new card face, and then Scrolls only is kind of the official name for the format with only these scroll cards. I've been hoping that they are going to get different names at some point, because I don't think that they necessarily fit. When I think Classic, I think of it should be Scrolls only, and rotation kind of makes sense for now because it's just a rotated card pool, but nothing's actually rotated yet since it's just the first time it's happened, so it's kind of just a split. Anyways, I won't go on about that too much because you've probably heard enough of it, either from me or from other people. I'm not the only one who thinks that, so hopefully, if you're watching this video far enough in the future, maybe those have already changed, and that's part of why I want to clarify now, so that when I use that terminology during the video, that you're not confused. So, anyways, let's go ahead and hear a quick word from our sponsors over at Your Turn Games, and then we'll just get right into it. This video is sponsored by Your Turn Games, a retailer of Redemption CCG with various products, such as singles, sealed product, and great deals on bundles like battle boxes and grab bags. They also have pre-built decks, such as Challenger decks in the $55 range, Contender decks in the $80 to $95 range, and Champion decks in the "this deck just placed at Nationals last year" range. They also have card supplies to keep you caught up on all of your gaming needs, and at no cost to you, they have Redemption resources such as the latest Redemption news, rules, tournaments that are coming up, and Redemption content such as this. So head on over to yourturngames.biz today, and a big thank you to them for supporting this content. Okay, starting out, I'm sorting by artifacts, then I'm sorting by I sorted by name, then card or brigade, and then card type, which means that the type is the highest level and the name is the lowest level. So we'll be going through the brigades in alphabetical order and the types in alphabetical order, and hopefully that makes sense. We're starting with Altar of Ahaz because that's the first A artifact. So let's talk about this one. It came out in Priest. Protect all lost souls from rescue by dominance. Discard this card if a human or hero rescues a lost soul from your territory. This is good in like defensive heavy decks, and it's not great. It pretty much just stops their Son of God in New Jerusalem, and it's pretty easy to deal with, such that they can either rescue a lost soul, use a destruction, use captured arc, and then they just drop their dominance, and then it's kind of a useless card after that. So it's not used a whole lot, but in like very defensive heavy decks, it's kind of similar to like the Arrest and Gethsemane part of John Early's 2015 defensive heavy deck, where it stopped your opponent from rescuing with dominance. But if it did something else, it might be a little bit better. But Altar of Burnt Offering, probably not really useful. Not enough offering enhancements right now. Altar of Dagon, same sort of thing. Characters being converted doesn't happen often enough to be worth playing. Altar of Incense, OT heroes are protected from discard abilities on evil enhancements. If it can all discard abilities, like, I guess the newer one doesn't even do that either, then, maybe it'd be more worth playing, but it's symmetrical, so it protects your opponents as well, so you kind of have to build around it. Probably not worth playing in most cases. You won't see it in competitive decks. Arc of the Covenant is basically just a way to discard evil characters, regardless of whether or not they win the battle. Not a terrible card, but it not really used a whole lot. The Warriors version does the same thing. Ashore Pull is probably one that will get used in more decks, probably more defensive heavy ones, and probably ones with the New Testament offense, so maybe like Disciples and Scrolls Only. I mean, I guess also in Classic, but it's basically just makes OT enhancements CBN when an OT hero is being blocked. So that's either you're blocking an OT hero or your opponent is. Evil enhancements are cannot be negated. So it's a very powerful effect, especially if you can surprise your opponent with it with something in rotation, probably more likely, but in Classic you can with Queen Maka, which I guess we'll get to her at some point in Crimson here. The evil character is Assyria's Tribute, is usable with an Assyrian defense. Just negates characters or negates enhancements and heroes, so it's kind of symmetrical with the enhancements, but only negates their heroes, so it's good against like banding and stuff. It can be used twice though, so after 2 rounds it'll be discarded. Blue Tassels is a little bit more useful than Altar of Incense. It stops characters from being taken prisoner from capture, protects characters from capture pretty much. Which is a little bit better, but you're probably better off having something that releases your captured heroes if you're worried about capture being big. Book of the Covenant, pretty much the similar thing as the newer, or the rotation version, where you can activate 2 covenants on it, but that's the only thing you can do, so probably not worth it because there aren't that many great covenants in Scrolls Only, if you're playing rotation or Classic, then you just play the newer Book of the Covenant. Book of the Law is really only used in one combo deck throughout the history of the game, and that was back when the Errata to a New Beginning had kind of a loophole where it removed itself from the game, but if you didn't remove it removed itself from the game in order to get the shuffle effect, but not to get the end the battle effect. So what people did is they had Book of the Law active in a temple, and then Hidden Treasures active in the regular artifact pile, which we'll get to Hidden Treasures, definitely a playable one. And then they would attack with a Prophet, play a New Beginning. It wouldn't shuffle everything because it couldn't be banished. It was protected by Book of the Law, but it would still end the battle, so your opponent wouldn't even get a chance to block. Pretty sweet combo, but definitely had to be fixed. Burial Shroud. This is used in some defensive heavy decks where you're not planning to attack every turn, but in most cases you'll want to attack every turn. It could be helpful against the lack of soul gen though in Scrolls Only. So if you don't have that much soul gen and your opponent droughts you, then Burial Shroud can be a good way to not lose value during that time, or I guess not get to reciprocate attacks. So Chariot of Fire, definitely a usable card, came out as a promo and also in the Warrior set. It was a winter promo for tournaments for a while. You can get all of your heroes back from your discard pile to your draw pile. Just shuffle them all, and it's usable. It's not you probably won't see it in much competitive play because heroes just there are only a few cards that actually discard all of your heroes, and most of the time people will not be relying on certain heroes. But if you're playing with people who play a lot of defense and you're going to have to play a long game or something, then it's a useful card to include. Cross Beams with the Cross, definitely not usable. Just ignores beasts pretty much. So yeah, don't do that. Crown of Thorns, usable, especially in the Disciples deck. When you've got old school Thaddeus in your, you guys probably saw that if you watched my video from last week, in which I did Scrolls Only game with Mark Valake, and I used a Disciples deck, and I played Crown of Thorns. I don't know if I actually activated it during that battle, or during that game, but if you've got enough Disciples out, then Crown of Thorns will basically make it so that any evil character that blocks Thaddeus will be protected, or everything will be protected from that evil character. Just make sure that, it does decrease your evil characters as well, so make sure that you are playing a defense that doesn't get hit by it too hard. Darius's decree. And can you guys even read that? Maybe a little bit. It's kind of the, I don't know, I guess Moses before Moses. Covenant with Death before Covenant with Death. Opponent can't play good enhancements from hand unless an evil character is in battle. It was the same set that, or it came out in TXP, which is the same set that territory class enhancements were invented or released. I don't know, created. So you can blame that set, I guess, for all the issues that we have now. So that part of it was pretty good, but the big part of it, I think, that a lot of people used was you can discard it to discard all heroes in set-aside areas. A big speed card, or like speed method, I guess, in Scrolls Only is using the feasts from priests, like Pentecost and First Fruits, to get some drawing, but those set aside all of your human heroes. And then also Fishing Boat is placed to set aside, and you can load it up with Disciples in order to draw cards. I guess we'll get to all those, but you discard it to discard all of those heroes at the same time. You're going to make your opponent wish that they had Chariot of Fire, I guess, is the point of all that. David's Harp, probably not really worth it. There are better cards that do better things, such as Chariot of Fire. But you just get one hero that's about to be discarded and put it on top of your drop pile. Elijah's Mantle, not really playable. Just gain all of your heroes all gain 2/2. Endless Treasures isn't actually a Scrolls Only card. It's just... okay. Information for how to use Lackey. The filter I use to get this is that legality doesn't contain rotation, because there's no actual legality indicator, I guess, for Scrolls Only, or like, scroll cards. It's just blank. So you just have to make it not contain rotation. Endless Treasures, the legality is banned, so it doesn't contain rotation, but it's not a scroll card. Okay, anyways, good little piece of a Lackey tutorial for you there. Just when you click on the information for, or when you're editing the filter, you can do doesn't contain instead of contains. All right, we still need that. Okay, didn't lose my spot. All right, Evan Man's Sword, no battle may begin as battle challenge, not really usable. Poor Drachma Coin, definitely usable in a Disciples deck. You can. The problem with Scrolls Only is that you are going to have to use the Apostles' Peter, which is red, so it doesn't quite fit in with the rest of your offense. But since you also want to increase your disciple count for Thaddeus, and you can put Peter in Fishing Boat and get some value from him there by underdecking him to draw however many other disciples you have in Fishing Boat, then I think he's still worth using in the deck. And the speed on 4-drop coin is just really good. You can discard it to draw 4 cards. So it's pretty much like the new one, except it also protects your reserve. And it just protects it from opponents, not just discard abilities on opponents' cards. Alright, Gifts of the Magi. This was a good one. Not great. Probably not like usable in modern Scrolls Only or in Classic. But it's pretty much only if you're using the Gifts of the Magi Her combo, which Her is the hero that makes your opponent keep 1 card in their hand, shuffle the rest of it, and then draw 7 more cards. If you have Gifts of the Magi open, you also get to draw 7 cards. Fun combo. Golden Calf, prevent all special abilities on OT heroes, cannot be negated. It's actually pretty decent in a New Testament deck. It's kind of hard to find enough artifact slots for it, since there are definitely artifacts that are more playable. And you could also just play Confusion of Mind, and that's, just hits all of your opponent's heroes, and usually they won't discard it. So probably not worth it. Hezekiah's Signet Ring. This is one that has seen a lot of play throughout the years. No opponent may search any draw pile or discard pile. This is a restrict, not a protect. So if your opponent's deck is protected, it doesn't matter because it restricts the player. It targets the player. So you can stop them from searching, and that's actually like really good in it's a very strong effect. The really only downside to this artifact is that you couldn't activate it and another artifact, and that becomes kind of the tricky part of like, do I need a counter, or do I need speed or something? Something like and there are plenty of other counters that you might want to play, like Rain Becomes Dust or Confusion of Mind. So Hidden Treasures, talked about this earlier. If you're alone with Green Brigade Prophet, it begins in battle, you can play an enhancement or discard an evil enhancement from opponent's deck. So basically you just get to play first before your opponent gets to block. It's been a part of many strong combos throughout the years, and it's yeah, just a strong card. So if you're playing Green Prophets and you have good enhancements that you want to play before any of a character blocks, such as, I don't know, like you could play Holy Unto the Lord on a green and teal hero or something like that, or yeah, I guess a New Beginning. That's kind of just the big one, or I guess Love at First Sight. It was a big part of that deck. Holy Grail is a great artifact that was reprinted in Persecuted Church, so you've got that in rotation as well, so I won't mention too much about that. Holy of Holies, I guess I'll just say that it is playable in Scrolls only and probably somewhat in Classic, but definitely in Scrolls only. So you want to be familiar with that one. Holy of Holies stops all like Fight by the Numbers characters, so King of Tyrus, Benaiah, Ira, Strong Angel, Moses, all those, it stops them, or it prevents them. So that's a pretty good one. If you saw in my video last week, I was playing Demons. I was also running Holy of Holies because of it combos with Trembling Demon by negating the portion that allows your opponent to instead the ability. The D deck, or I guess I can't remember if, I want to say this was the first edition. The second edition D starter deck, it had CBN. Okay, yeah, so second edition had CBN, second edition revised. Oh, okay, so I guess the revised version doesn't have the CBN, so it can be negated. And the priest one can't be negated during the battle phase, which I guess is really the only one that matters, except I guess if you're playing rotation, in which case it would negate a territory class Moses. Alright, Household Idols. I'm honestly not sure how this card works now with the new, or the way that ignore effects work. I'm pretty sure that heroes with banned abilities still can't enter from territory, can't enter battle, but they're ignored by the artifact, so I think they can still rescue lost souls if you bring them in from hand. It was good. It's not great now. Iron Pan, this is one that Matt Sinclair will like. If a Babylonian is in play, negate all protect, immune, ignore, draw, and play abilities. So it negates a lot of stuff, which can be very strong. But opponent can discard a good fortress from territory to discard this card, so it's a little bit easy to deal with. I don't know. Usually you don't want to give up your good fortresses. The other problem is that it is symmetrical, so you can have to build around it. A lot of people would use it in like judges decks where they have a lot of drawing that's either CBN or CBP, and then you splash in Ezekiel, and you can use Babylonians, of course, in order to get the effect, because Iron Pan can be activated on Ezekiel. Probably won't see it a whole lot in during Classic Weekend, unless maybe in like a Type 2 deck where there'd be a little more space for it. Jacob's Ladder is just Rescuer's Choice on an artifact. Not great. Maybe better when 3-liner was legal, but it is not. So, Joseph's Silver Cup. You can your opponent has to keep their artifact active. This is a very flavorful, I guess, but also just a cool card where if your opponent has their I don't know, if they have their Burial Shroud active and you don't want them to be able to deactivate it so that they can attack you, then you can just activate Joseph's Silver Cup and they have to keep it active. Kind of cool. King's Sword prevents immune abilities. Not really useful. Lampstand of the Sanctuary, protect all cards not in battle from evil dominance. So that includes cards in your Land of Bondage, Land of Redemption, and territory, of course. I believe also your hand is considered not in battle. So I could be wrong about that. I'm pretty sure it is. So it would protect from mayhem. So it's not not in battle is just like not just cards in play, but also cards in play that are not in battle, but also cards in other zones as well. So you could use it in a Scrolls only deck as kind of a replacement for Guardians, so that you can use that slot for other things. But it is tough to keep it active the whole time unless you have a temple to activate it in. Magic Charms, very overpowered artifact. You can activate it on your Magician, discard it to capture. Man, this is going to be a long video if I go through all of this, and I am not going to have a voice because you can see that scroll bar on the side. And yeah, we got to go quick. Magic Charms, very good. Activate on your Magician, capture heroes. Be familiar with that one. Miraculous Handkerchiefs, not so much. Moses' Rod. I had a Type 2 deck where I used a lot of Exodus Plagues and Moses and Benaiah. So I had like Plague of Flies and Plague of Frogs, and you just put up Moses' Rod, attack with them, and you get CBP battle winners. Pretty sweet. Pot of Mana, protect from side battles, not really worth it. Pursue Bus Parade, ignores, it negates, ignore. Man, I'm just going to stumble over all my words now because I'm trying to rush so much. Not really useful. Priestly Crown, not really useful unless your playgroup has a lot of sites or something, but Ram's Horn, yeah, it's decent if you're using priests or warrior classes, kind of your focus, like that's your main strategy, but it's only a one-time use pretty much, because if your rescue is successful, then you have to discard it. Old Ram's Horn stops redirect. Terrible card. Redirect is not very popular, or common even. So Samaritan Water Jar, decent card if you're running at least a few Samaritans. You can, it's good soul gen, probably some of the best soul gen in Scrolls Only. Stocks of Flax is kind of just a fun card. You exchange 2 of your heroes with 2 of your opponent's heroes. It's not super powerful, but Stone Pillar, Bethel, I would use it in a Genesis offense, most likely. At least in Scrolls Only, probably not in rotation, because there's enough other ways to search cards out of your deck. But in Classic, I don't know. Now we're going to have an Old Testament Son of God, so Stone Pillar will help you get to that. Table of Showbread, probably not ever used competitively, and yeah, it's decent, but not great. Tables of the Law, somewhat useful. You can keep more cards in your hand, but probably not worth the artifact slot in most any deck. Same thing as Priestly Crown with Temple Veil there. Just for NT heroes. Ron's Laver has a rotation version, somewhat decent. Works well with Demons and Gates of Hell. Master's Table, not really worth talking about. Silver Trumpets, it's decent with priests. You can add like a Himelech the Hittite to battle if you're playing, priest, kind of splash with red, and you've got David as well. That's kind of a fun little play. We can only use it twice though, and it actually is not a Tabernacle or Temple artifact. I believe that was errated, so that is a priestly artifact. So you can grab it with Eliezer, son of Aaron, but you cannot activate it into Temple, which makes it significantly worse, unfortunately. 30 pieces of silver, not great. It is basically just a Covenant or Ark of the Covenant, but for heroes. I'm not sure if it got errated to not be symmetrical, because it just says regardless of battle outcome, heroes discarded, so it could be your own battles too. So you kind of have to watch out for that. 3 Nails ignores demons, which that's actually, it was pretty decent at one point when demons were very popular after priests came out. Probably not useful now. Unholy Writ, there's a rotation version of that now, a Legacy Rare in GOC, which is it's a great card. You can just use it as a battle winner to stall your opponent if they're not banding and they're using humans. Urban Thummim also has a rotation version, got nerfed a bit by the new artifact rule, where you can't activate an artifact you've already deactivated in that turn. So if I deactivate my Holy Grail to use Urban Thummim, I can't reactivate Holy Grail on that turn, which is kind of a bummer. But definitely a good card if you've got a few High Priests in your deck. You can know what your opponent is playing, and if I'd probably only play it now if I have enough artifacts where I can use. Sorry, I just got to turn down my volume a little bit there, because I feel like I was clipping a little bit. It looked like I was kind of reaching in there, so I apologize for that if that was the case. And you can discard, or you can use the Urban Thummim to look at your opponent's hand and know their defense before you attack. Know what the best way to attack is. Definitely a great card. Justin would definitely recommend, and I mostly recommend. Wash Basin, Justin, and Alstead, my brother, in case you don't know. Good player. He's also one of the Mr. Classic players this weekend. So, anyways, Wash Basin. Yeah, never really that great. Decent soul gen, because you can put the cards on top of their deck if it's a lost soul. Wolf Fleece stops evil characters from banding. Yeah, it's not great. Not super useful. Denarius, never super useful, just like a part of a hand control deck. The new Denarius, very useful, so just use that one instead if you're doing Classic. Windows of Narrow Light. Basically just protects your meek heroes from capturing conversion and banish. It was okay. I like the identifier. It's temple item. It's probably not useful now. Covenant of Abraham. Hey, we're on to Covenants, the next card type. Oh boy, it's gonna be no evil character can be set aside. Not great. Covenant of Noah is decent. Interrupt and prevent one evil enhancement. You can use it once, so you can. I believe that you're able to use it at any time. I think it has an errata so that you can do that. It's not just like right when you activate it, interrupt and prevent one evil enhancement. Otherwise, or that's how it was intended to work, but under the current rules, that exact wording would not work the way that I believe it was errated to work. I'm not positive on that though. I Am Holy, decent card, a little underplayed. But you just discard one of your good cards from hand, your opponent has to discard an evil card from hand. So a lot of people are playing more good cards than evil cards. It's a good way to make sure that your good cards don't go to waste. So especially if you're doing hand control and you kind of know what your opponent's got going on. If you're looking at their hand a lot, then this can be a very useful and flexible card. Not always worth the artifact slot, but it'll be good in scrolls only, to some degree. Covenant with Moses, pretty much only good only good in scrolls only, not just pretty much. It's only good in scrolls only. Negating Unholy Writ is kind of nice, but most of the time people would play it in battle to increase their Moses, back when name on name bonus was the thing. And so you would just attack with Moses, you'd play that, it would be add 14/6 to your Moses, make him a 22/14, and usually win the battle, because he was just so big. Moses beat a lot of King of Tyruses with Covenant with Moses back in the day. I Am Healing, not great. I Am Redemption, it's better than Blue Tassels. Well, I don't know, maybe it's about the same, because your characters can still be captured, and then you just lose the battle if they're captured in battle. But yeah, it's pretty standard effect. Negates household idols, used pretty much only in a Fate of the Numbers banning deck, and not even in the one that won Nationals in 2012, which Mark used last week against me, Martin Miller's deck. I Am Patience, it's not great because you don't want your rescue attempts to fail, but if they do, it's kind of fun. I don't know, you can use Rhoda, or that was the thing, you just attack with Rhoda and then you withdraw her if you weren't going to win the battle anyway, so you can keep her safe and then still convert their evil characters. Yeah, kind of nice. I Am Salvation, negate special abilities and Lost Souls. It can be useful if you're playing like an OT male focused deck in scrolls only, because NT only and female only are pretty good Lost Souls that are widely used in scrolls only. Covenant of Palestine, same thing as I Am Redemption pretty much, except I guess it stops capture as well, so probably better than I Am Redemption. I Am Mercy, not great. Josiah's Covenant, not really useful, unless you're playing like Wrath of Satan or something. New Covenant, probably better if you're playing Wrath of Satan. You can heal your NT heroes, and hopefully your opponent's playing OT, I guess. But you also get your NT heroes back, and you can reuse it. So this is one that I did use in my Disciples Scrolls deck. I think it's useful enough. Covenant with Adam can also be useful in the same ways as Crown of Thorns, but it only decreases characters in battle, and only humans. I Am Creator, still a great card and fairly popular. In Scrolls Only, it was popular in Classic back when you could access the reserve on the first turn, because Exiles would just go get this from reserve, or Book of the Covenant, get that, and then you can just get whatever hero you want on the first turn. Not really what the reserve was intended for, but I Am Creator was used a lot at that point. And it's still decent in Scrolls Only, I think, where it just kind of counts as an additional hero just for your ratios, because it's any hero in your deck on the first turn. I Am Grace, not very good. Covenant of Eden, no. I Am Justice, no. I'm just going to start blazing through some of these. Covenant of Phineas, protect from discard abilities and evil cards is pretty good with Zerubbabel's Temple Priest, because Zerubbabel's Temple protects them from all the other things. So if you have a Zerubbabel's Temple House of Eliezer Priest, you can get a lot of layers of protection going on. But that theme in general isn't that great. So Covenant Assault, OT heroes gain 2/2, so it's kind of like Elijah's Mantle. I Am Love, no. I Am Truth, no. Carcasses, decent with cards like Wrath of Satan. You discard all heroes, and it cannot be negated if it were a class of evil characters in battle. So if you're playing like Philistines, then it's decent. No. Give Me a Curse is kind of it's a way to get rid of your opponent's Son of God, so pretty good if you're playing enough Canaanites. Peter's Curse, It's okay, not great. Plagued with Diseases, decrease all opponents' heroes by O2. Not great either. Wasting Disease, not wonderful. Covenant with Death, definitely playable. You've probably heard about this card before, even if you are newer to the game. It's definitely a classic viable card, and definitely a scrolls only viable card. Just a symmetrical, very powerful symmetrical effect, so you can have to build your deck around it, and that's what John really did in 2018. That was 2018, right? Was that 2019? I don't know. One of those years. He used it very effectively in his deck to kind of counter the meta. That's not great. Captured Arc is great. Taking out your opponent's artifacts is good. There's a rotation version of this card as well. Go into Captivity is kind of like another Unholy Writ, but you have to have an evil character in battle. But it also captures angels, so it's pretty good. If I'm running a deck with Babylonians and especially with Nebuchadnezzar, I'll probably run this because it's a good option that you can add to battle with Nebuchadnezzar and actually use as an enhancement. Unlike most curses, you probably won't be doing that, but Go into Captivity is one that you can play in battle, or you can activate as an artifact, so it's pretty flexible in that way. Given over to Egypt, hey, an example of a curse that you don't want to play in battle. It's probably not even all that useful in Egyptian defense, unless you're really focused on the mill, but if you are, you're probably going to be wanting to do that in Classic, where you have the entire card pool. Not great. Unknown Nation is pretty decent. A good add to battle card. It's not good in the late game though, because you do have to add the character from your draw pile. So if you don't have any characters left, you won't get to use it. Rain Becomes Dust is a very strong card that I have grown to despise due to my own errors of playing Mayhem while my opponent had them active, and I don't want to talk about it. Alright, Unsuccessful. The new one is so much better, but this one is okay. You can negate an opponent's enhancement. Madness. I'm not going to talk about Blindness. Madness is a good add to battle card if you've got a bigger orange defense. I can't remember if I had space for it in my Disciples Demons deck that I played last week, but there's not a whole lot of add to battle in Scrolls only, but Madness, Orange has a lot of the good ones. 2015, Josiah's Spirit Thing deck that he took second place at Nationals with. He had a lot of add to battle stuff with defense, using Gates of Hell and Madness, and a few other newer cards like early church cards and stuff that had come out and starter deck cards. Wastelands, if you're using a site deck, then maybe, in Scrolls only. Confusion of Mind, good card, has a rotation version, playable in both formats for sure. Incurable, no. 7 Years of Famine, it's another symmetrical negate, draw, and ignore abilities. And maybe good if you just want to be annoying, but not great. 7 Years of Plenty, definitely great if you are playing like a Gen Egyptian deck. Get out your fortress and you get an extra draw every turn for 7 turns. Drawn Sword is definitely good if you've got Ezekiel or even just Babylonian defense. Usually you want to have them together. But a good CBP battle winner always goes a long way, especially with heroes like Benaiah and Sapphira, or evil characters like Sapphira, where you're doing the negating and your opponent has to have a CBN interrupt or negate, or CBP. Forest Fire, same lines, very flexible card. Josiah brought up both of these cards, I think, he brought up Forest Fire versus like Samuel's Edict. I think John and Josiah brought that up on the podcast if you were listening to that last week. Very good card, very flexible. And Razor and Siegeworks, they're kind of falling under the same category of their flexibility, but they are not CBP. So not quite as good. If you're playing Isaiah and Assyrians, then definitely. If you're playing one or the other, it's maybe not very useful. Philosophy, definitely not useful now. It used to be back in the day when Fight for the Numbers was more of a thing. I guess like standalone Fight for the Numbers. Like Ira, Benaiah, before all the warrior class banding stuff. Defenestrated, nope. Foreign Sword. This is a good card in the Fight by the Numbers deck, especially if you using it on offense to top deck your opponent's evil characters. Pretty good. I don't know why this card is here. Should be a rotation card, but I'll have to make note of that for next Lackey update. All right, we are now to Dominance. So we've got Burial, a card that has been reprinted many times. There's a new version of GOC, which is pretty good, fairly similar effect, but doesn't discard the Lost Soul. It's probably not super useful in Scrolls Only. It's better than having only 6 dominance, but so if you only have 6, then you should use it. If you've got a lot of Lost Souls that are, have ways to protect themselves or ways to hide Lost Souls, or maybe you're playing a sight deck, then I would use Burial, but other than that, probably not. Christian Martyr, definitely usable. Discard a hero, still used. Destruction, definitely usable in Scrolls Only. In rotation, use the new version because it's more flexible, but hitting one of your opponent's artifacts, like an Unholy Writ or Magic Charms, can be very strong. Doubt, not the best, but can be used if you're playing orange. That's probably the only case in which I do it. Or, let's see, if you're playing multiplayer, which isn't really a thing now officially at least, but it can be kind of fun because if your opponent doesn't have a way to block, you can place Doubt in their territory and they can use it to block that way. Falling Away, use it. It's not a fun card, but it's a very strong card, so you should probably use it. Mayhem, the errata to it is definitely necessary. You can only you shuffle 6 cards at random or your entire hand. I guess you can still choose to shuffle your entire hand, but otherwise you could also just choose to shuffle 6 cards at random, so it's not as much of a card swing. You can't they had to errata it so you couldn't play it on the first round of the game, but then they did change that back once they changed it so that it was a random 6 cards rather than your entire hand, because what people would do is they just pass the turn, the player goes second, draws 3, and then the other player plays Mayhem and just kind of cancels their draw 3 and also lose 2 more cards out of their opening 8. So usable, definitely. Necessary, no. Angel of the Lord, necessary, yeah. There are not as many great battle winners in Scrolls Only, but I mean, most of you are playing this in rotation as well, so it's good. Glory of the Lord, no, don't bother. Don't waste your time unless you're playing Type 2, I guess. Then maybe. Grapes of Wrath, very strong card. Make sure you read the new versions that you know what the errata does. In most cases, it probably won't matter, but definitely a card to be familiar with. Guardian of Your Souls, almost as important as Falling Away. If it's the 8th dominant for a lot of people, because Falling Away is so popular. But even if you are using it, it's more or less a 50-50 whether or not you get it in time before your opponent gets their Falling Away. Harvest Time, useful card. It does a very a fraction of what the new version does. But it's still pretty decent, even in Scrolls Only. It's maybe kind of along the lines of Burial, where it's better than having 6 dominance, but not probably not super usable when you factor in all of the other dominant choices. But it's good against things like Death of Unrighteous and Just a Hireling, where your opponent's going to be shuffling their Lost Souls away and discarding their evil character, and then you just play Harvest Time and you get to pick the Lost Soul up for free. New Jerusalem, definitely play it in Scrolls Only. Don't play it in rotation or classic. I mean, obviously not in rotation. Definitely don't play it in classic. Or you know what I meant. Son of God, the classic or the Scrolls version does not negate, so you have to be a little more careful with NT only Lost Souls and even Star 4 Lost Souls. But obviously you still want to play it. All right, we're on to the cards with more brigades. I guess we already did Covenants and Curses; those have brigades. But we're on to the Black Evil Enhancements. Not usable. Greeks, maybe usable at one point. Nope. Babel, it's kind of fun, but probably not the best. Nope. This was a good card. You should use it with Philistines. Nope. Nope. No. You're better off playing Devourer than Denying Blame. You should probably play the Warriors version of Devourer if you have it. It's not necessary in Scrolls Only, but I wouldn't say it's necessary, but it's good. It's kind of like Bringing Fear was sort of its replacement. So, I mean, if you're not playing Philistines, then you want Devourer, but if you're not playing Philistines and you're playing Black, then you're probably doing it wrong. Canaanites are maybe okay, but Yeah, play the Warriors version because it discards all and good enhancements now in play. The King's version only discards the ones in battle, so if your opponent has placed enhancements or weapons in territory, you can hit those as well. Or maybe if you have your own placed enhancements or weapons that you want to stick around, then maybe you do want to play the King's one. So, which I think that was maybe kind of the reason for the change, is that you would have your own weapons, which came out with the King's set, and you wouldn't want them to be discarded by Devourer. Displeased Philistines, it's decent. Not as good as it was before they changed the way that the interaction worked with Mayhem, where you can no longer, it no longer restricts them from drawing cards that you force them to draw through Mayhem. Maybe, no, probably not really a card in Scrolls Only. Can be CBN with Captain of the Guard. Yeah, I think that's the card. Yeah, maybe in some decks, but probably not. Foolish Advice, pretty good card, just makes the battle fight by the numbers. It's good in black, especially with characters like Goliath, where you're kicking their characters out, and then you've got a big dude negating banding already, so they're probably not going to have too many heroes. And then you can use this to negate their stuff, and you've got big numbers. Fortify Sight, useful with Canaanites, but probably not. Canaanites are not that popular. Similar with Give Me Night Trickery, good enhancement, or well, good evil enhancement, but only good in that particular theme. And Canaanites themselves are not all that popular, so you probably don't need to be all that familiar with it. High Priest Plot is kind of similar, very niche. There are some Sadducees that are useful, like if you're using High Priests. One of the versions of the hero list deck that my brother Jordan used to run used High Priest Plot, especially if you can set it up with Altar of Ahaz, where you're slowing your opponent down from being able to play their Son of God, and then you can time this right to discard their Son of God from their hand. Hunger, it's a one-sided board wipe of heroes that are 6/6 or less, so it's not terrible, but there are probably better cards to play at this point, even in Scrolls Only. Intent to Kill, CBP, discard, not great, not bad, I guess. Joseph in Prison, good battle winner. Interrupt the battle, remove all cards, especially good with Sisera. To the ground, no. Land Dispute, it's debatable. I would probably use it in a Philistines Scrolls Only deck. Nope. Capture on net, it's decent if you've got other capture synergies, like the aforementioned Captain of the Guard. Overwhelmed by Philistines, I would definitely use it in a Scrolls Only Philistine deck. CBN if a purple heroes in battle, so if your opponent plays Transfiguration and bans in Moses and Elijah, Moses negates the protection on Elijah, and Elijah is purple, so this is a good block against that. Philistine Chariot and Horses, this is very good card. I really should have brought some water or something down here because my throat is getting quite dry. I might have to pause at some point to go get some. Pride of Simon, okay. Way to get some of your good battle winners back, but you can probably just find enough good battle winners to not have to use that. This one is a good one, even if you're just splashing in a female Canaanite, or, even just in black in general, even if you don't have a female Canaanite. If you're playing black, you probably should have Lot's Wife at least. Even in Scrolls Only, or in Classic, you'll be using Foreign Wives, so Stone of Thebes is decent. Basically, it was one of the few cards that could answer auto to Gideon, so it's pretty good. Only has humans though, so if your opponent's playing angels, then you're out of luck. Also works if you're doing side battles, I guess, since it's in the field of battle, so. Yes, Wrath of Satan. Discard all heroes in play. Just have a plan for this card if you're to save your own heroes. Definitely useful in the hero list deck that Jordan was running as well. Definitely part of the reason that black was in there. Okay, Arrest and Gethsemane. This is a card I was talking about earlier, where John used in his 2015 deck to slow down people from using their dominance. Because it protects all hostels from rescue except by human heroes, and coincidentally it just completely shut down Josiah's deck. in 2015, the Spirit Thing deck that I mentioned before with the Angels and Demons, because it's just placed in territory, and I guess he didn't have Live Cold, or maybe he already used it or something, and couldn't get it back, so... and then it discards after 3 turns, but if you have Stoic Philosophers in play, which John was playing, the early Church card, then it is protected from its own discard ability. Just a Hireling, definitely a usable card, especially if you're doing Pharisees or Sadducees. Just shuffle up to 3 Lost Souls into deck. A lot of times you'll only have 3 Lost Souls, or you'll only have 3 that are accessible by your opponent, so that's good. Tenants Kill the Sun, another good card for Pharisees or Sadducees. Pharisees are definitely more common in Scrolls only, but Sadducees used to be a little more playable. No, still not really usable. Broken Cisterns, usable in a combo deck using Sower and a multi-brigade good enhancement, like a Rainbow good enhancement. That's pretty much about it. You'll have to look those cards up, because I'm not going to go into it too much anymore, or too much more than that. Here's a playable card with King Zedekiah. He makes it CBN, and it's Soul Gen, because you're placing the hero in your opponent's land of bondage, so pretty good, and it takes any hero, not just humans. Here's another card to be familiar with. If your opponent is playing brown, then they'll probably have Gib Trick, where they can use this to gain 04. The heroes in battle also gain 04, but the numbers on the enhancement are 04. So it makes it more likely that the battle will end in a stalemate, but the battle will end, and it cannot be interrupted or prevented. So conveniently does not get tossed by the cross, even though it is, in practice, cannot be negated. So it's a good one if you're using that. In a similar vein, Haman's Plot is a card that you probably are aware of, but if you're not, you should become aware of it, because either in both Scrolls only and Classic, it is very playable. Just beware, if you play in a tournament, you will have to rip it or tear it, and it cannot be interrupted, prevented, or negated. None of the above. So yeah, cannot be negated, but it doesn't get tossed by Colosseum if you're doing that, because it has to say cannot be negated in order for it to be tossed by that. Image of Jealousy is kind of a useful card. At least it was. Scrolls only, even, I probably wouldn't use it, but I have used it. Wouldn't use it today. Core's Rebellion, similar to Joseph in Prison, pretty much the same exact effect. But Brown has a lot of other enhancements that are pretty good, so this was one that is, if you're playing mono Brown, then maybe, but if you're splashing some Brown stuff, then you probably won't splash that. Plus, there's no evil character to make it CBN like there is with Joseph in Prison, where you've got Sisera and also Simon the Magician. And I hope that it's just my screen that's kind of lagging a little bit, and not the actual video. Oh, because that would be a problem. It might just be with my new computer. That would be a bummer. I suppose I could check that by moving it over onto the. Oh yeah, it's definitely the screen. Oh yeah, it's fine over here. So I'm just, if I'm looking at myself more than I ought to, it's because I'm worried that I'm lagging or jumping around. This is a somewhat useful card. It's kind of like a Foolish Advice, except it's brown and it's 0/4. Siege was kind of a fun card. You bring in all of your opponent's heroes and all of your evil characters, so it's like, right, everybody get in here, we're doing a huge battle. There are a few fun combos you could do with that to get rid of all your opponent's heroes. Like if you had Goliath and Herod Agrippa II, you could bring both of them in and bring in all of your opponent's heroes, and then withdraw them all and then capture them all. Fun times. Stiff-Necked is a pretty good card if you're playing mono brown, just negate your opponent's enhancement, but it's also CBN if used by an OT human, so CBN negates are pretty strong. Weakness of Balance is an underrated card that I would play pretty much only in mono brown, where it's just if opponent has more cards in hand, then if opponent has more cards in hand than you, draw 4 cards, you can play the next enhancement. So pretty good with Gib Trick, because you're getting bigger numbers without passing initiative. And if your opponent's attacking you, they probably have more cards in hand than you. Wickedness of the Tenants, not a good brown or mono brown. Defense card, it's an interrupt and a battle winner, and it cannot be prevented, so it's good against Moses and Benaiah and all that jazz. Disturbing Samuel Spirit is a card that was, used to be played in some decks that I had run, but probably not too much today. Belshazzar's Banquet, good with Babylonians. Definitely want to be using that. And if you're running Babs or just any Crimson defense, really doesn't have to be Babylonians. Carried into Exile is it's okay. It's you can capture their evil characters too. It's just any humans. 2 humans if used by a Babylonian, and it can be played by King Meridoc Baladan. So if you're playing like a very straightforward Babylonian defense where you're kind of focused on the capture aspect, you want that. You want Head of Gold, all that good stuff. Christian Suing Another is also a pretty decent card. It's an interrupt and a potential battle winner. So you just have to have some stuff on offense to help you win the battle, or Darius' Decree, because that actually works inside battles to you don't have to oops. Here we go. You don't have to your opponent can't play enhancements in the side battle. That's how Darius' Decree is worded, and that's how it works. Kind of cool. Deceit of Sapphira, no, probably not really useful. I wouldn't use it. Desecrate the Temple is another like dedicated Babylonian card. If you've got a big enough defense, definitely try to fit it in, especially if you've got Nebi to get it out on turn 1, and hopefully you can hit their Son of God from their deck. Dream, yes, definitely a playable card. Interrupt the battle, draw 3, play the next enhancement. Some of the best speed in the format, scrolls only. Great Image, another dedicated Crimson card if you've got a big enough defense, if you can fit it. It's like you don't want to give up too many battle winners, but if you can squeeze that in, it can be pretty game shifting, especially if you play that and then something like Belshazzar's Banquets, they don't have an opportunity to negate it. Head of Gold, another good Babylonian focused card. Capture up to X humans, so if you have a lot of Babylonians, you can do a lot of damage, taking out their offense and their defense. Imitating Evil, similar to Pride of Simon. There's probably enough enhancements where you don't necessarily need it, but if you've got a Head of Gold or something where it's a very strong play, or Belshazzar's Banquet is pretty good to grab with Imitating Evil because it doesn't pass initiative and you can just get it back, or you play it right away. Minion Attack is okay. It's kind of like Foolish Advice, except it doesn't stop banding. So you can band all of your evil characters together and then have this ready to negate your opponent's stuff. Nebuchadnezzar's Pride, playable. Another interrupt and battle winner. And it's mass battle winner, so it takes everything out. Really good on Nurgle. The only problem is that your stuff is also set aside for 4 turns. So you could play Covenant with Abraham with it to not set your own stuff aside, but probably not worth it. Set Forces, definitely worth it. Interrupt, play next. You'll see a theme where the more powerful cards are the cards that either negate everything, or cards that interrupt and then either win you the battle or allow you to play something else that wins the battle. Invoking Terror is a good card. Get it back with Astrologers or Egyptian Magicians right off the bottom of the deck, and you can keep reusing it. There's a new version of that as well. Legacy Rare. Beheaded was okay. You can hit one of their male human heroes in territory, or in battle, so it's kind of flexible in that way. Sieging the City, great card. I think it would go in pretty much every gold, like mainly gold defense. Gold doesn't splash super well. No, I don't know. I guess like Egyptian Magicians and King of Towers you can splash in, but I wouldn't put Besieging in with a deck where gold is splashed, only in mono gold, but I would probably put it in any mono gold deck I build, which if I'm playing mono gold probably means I'm playing Egyptians, in which case I'm also going to want Egyptian Horses, another interrupt draw 2, play next. And Enslaved by Egypt is pretty good. It's a CBN battle winner, which are pretty much all of those are going to be cards that I'm going to stop and talk about during this video. So, all right, this is just distracting now. I gotta move it over here, over to the other screen, and then I'm just going to be covering it up. Yeah, my other monitor is struggling here. My tablet. Man, I really didn't want to have to do any editing in this video, so I'm sorry that you're getting everything raw here. Escape to Egypt. If I'm playing Herods, I'll probably do that. Herods aren't great, so we probably won't see it a whole lot. Evil Spirit is actually decent, but once Disciples came out and were more popular, then it can become useless very quickly. So, you know, it's one of those like first cards to be cut in a gold defense. But CBN Battle Winners, I mentioned those. Those are good. So, Failed Objective, pretty much a Belshazzar's Banquet. Yeah, pretty good card. I would run it in any gold defense. And that one I probably would splash in a defense that had even just a little bit of gold. Mask of Fear is another Foolish Advice thing, similar thing there. Yeah, Massacre of Innocence I would probably use in a Herod defense, but I probably wouldn't use a Herod defense. So, Most Skilled Egyptian, another Interrupt and Battle Winner. Definitely usable in Egyptians, but probably one of the first ones I would cut if I needed to make some space. Yeah, another CBN Negate, which is pretty good. The best part about it is your opponent plays a battle winner and then you negate it and they can't negate your battle winner. There's a lot of times people will have, you know, like some negates and some battle winners, and so if they have one of each, then the negate's not going to help them against Ruthless. So good card for Egyptian defenses. Swift Horses, the D-deck version is gold, and it's a Dream copy, I guess. Well, I mean, I guess Dream was the copy of Swift Horses, because I believe Swift Horses came out first. Yeah, Swift Horses definitely came out first. But yeah, it's the gold version of that, definitely playable in a gold defense. And Wonders Forgotten will be the second of a few different end of battle abilities that we're going to be going through here. This is, you know, similar to Give Me Night Trickery, except you can do a little bit of stuff from their discard pile. It does get tossed by the Cross and by Colosseum though, so in Classic, you just, you know, gotta be aware of that, but it's definitely playable in Classic. Probably not playable in, well, I don't know, maybe in Classic, because Emperors are kind of a thing, but probably not. There's definitely better enhancements out there. Magician Snakes is actually pretty good because of the prevalence of Fight by the Numbers and of banding. It's just a CBP, decent battle winner, and it also protects from dominance. The downside is that once you play it, your character is protected from dominance, but the enhancement is not, so they can still play Grapes of Wrath to discard the enhancement, and then shuffle, well, I guess they wouldn't shuffle your evil character, but they would shuffle their hero, and they would get to begin a new battle. Phantom's Disobedience, CBN battle winner, unless an angel is in battle, so it's a good one. It only protects one evil character in battle, though, so if you're banding, be careful. The other one will not be protected. Bearing Bad News is a card that used to be played more. It's kind of like a Belshazzar's Banquet. I don't know if it would be that common in current Scrolls Only, just because you're not going to be using quite as many unique human evil characters. You'll probably be blocking with characters like Pharisees or Sabbath Breaker. It used to be more popular back when you had this plus Momentum Change and False Peace, and playing that in Type 2 and chaining those. That was a pretty fun deck to use and play. There's a few capture cards in gray, like Deadly Snare and Demonic Snare. Those are both okay if you're doing capture stuff, but you're not going to see it in competitive Scrolls Only. False Peace, you probably also won't see in competitive Scrolls Only, but it's a great card to go get whatever you need for any situation and doesn't pass initiative unless you're in mutual or stalemate, I guess. Gold Shield's a card you might see in Scrolls Only competitively, where it doesn't pass initiative, but it converts your opponent's hero to a hero in any brigade, so you can stop them from being able to play what they want to play. Heavy Tax is the next end the battle ability. Definitely not quite as good as the others because it has to be used by an Emperor, but it is nice in a very focused deck because they also have to discard 2 cards from hand and you get to draw 2. So it's very strong in the right circumstances. Idle Gossip, another side battle card, works well with Darius's Decree, but it's kind of it'd have to be in a very specific deck where you want to get value from your heroes. Name is Chariot and Horses, another interrupt draw 2 play next, very good. Night Raid, it's another capture a hero and put an opponent's land in bondage, so it's pretty good. Not quite as good as Dungeon because, for one, it has the exception of Elisha being in play, and for two, it has numbers, so it passes initiative if you capture a hero in their territory. And three, it's easier to well, I don't know, maybe not necessarily easier to negate because, Dungeon is only CBN on King Zedekiah, but I guess Night Raid you can play at CBN on Naaman. That's a way to do it. You probably won't get initiative quite as easily there. Pretension, definitely use it in a Pharisee defense, or even if you just have a few Pharisees. It's a draw. It takes out a hero or two angels for a couple turns. Similar to the GOC version. Capture if you're using Syrians, but Syrians aren't all that popular. Like, I mean, you get a Naaman that might be splashed into some decks, but not a whole lot, or not like full-on Syrian defense. It's possible, but not great. Herod's Treachery, very good if you've got a couple of Herods. It's a territory class battle winner, so you don't have to, or you can use it after you try to block with something else. And it's harder to negate because they can't interrupt the battle unless you block with the Herod that it's on, which you typically don't want to do. But it's going to just, at any time, you can discard it to withdraw some heroes from battle. Lurking is okay. Only bans core evil characters, though, otherwise it would be better. Another banned rotation card. Romans destroy Jerusalem. I wouldn't bank on using it in Scrolls only. In Classic right now, it's definitely usable because you can put it in reserve, but in Scrolls only, there's no way to access your reserve. Orange should be pretty quick. There aren't that many great cards in Orange, but there are enough to at least make a solid defense. Corrupted, it's okay. Deafening Spirit, pretty good. It's a negate that's essentially CBN because it converts to an evil character, and they have to have negate the last evil enhancement played because they can't target it as an evil enhancement otherwise. Destructive Sin, it's okay. Not amazing, not great, or not amazing, not terrible. Evil Armor, in a Type 1 Scrolls only deck, that's kind of what we're aiming for here. Some of these might be useful in Type 2, but probably most of you are interested in Type 1. Sitting Hand, it's a good one to use. Essentially a CBI battle winner, which we don't see a whole lot of. They do have the option to discard half the cards in their hand, as you saw Mark did last week when I played it against him. Swine Stampede is another get rid of all your evil characters to do something with all of your lost souls. Another good reason to run Harvest Time in some cases. Or at least, if you run into your opponent having this, it's good. But yeah, you have to banish all your evil characters in battle. Basically, it's just a way to get around Wandering Spirits. Instead ability with the discard. But then you shuffle Lost Souls. Definitely playable. This card is playable. It's evil characters. I didn't use it in my deck, but I can see it being used. Worshiping Demons, another end the battle ability. Only 3 toughness this time, though, so it's not quite as flexible there, but you also get the protection if you have an idol or evil altar in play, which aren't all that popular, so yeah. Ekinson, another Joseph in Prison, Gor's Rebellion, just for pale greens. Usable, but not completely necessary. Capture by Assyria. Better captures capture is a little bit better in pale green, just because some of it can be CBN. Confusion, always a classic. And maybe in a dedicated, I'm only using pale green, but you probably won't see it a whole lot on in competitive Scrolls only Death of Unrighteous. You'll definitely see same thing as Swine Stampede, but it discards instead of banishes, and it isn't a cost benefit, so you can shuffle Lost Souls without discarding the evil characters if your evil characters are protected or something like that from your own discard. I don't know, it's possible. Divination is good. Use it with Magicians. Probably be common in competitive Scrolls only. Same thing with Forgotten History. It's another end the battle, and will be definitely seen in scrolls only. Might have to make this a two-parter. I'm sorry, guys, if that is the case. I don't know. I'll try to power through it. Another interrupt and battle winner, but it has to be used by Assyrian, or at least you have to have some Assyrians in play. But it is CBP, so that can be good if you're. I mean, definitely use it if you're running a straight Assyrians defense. Which UK horses? Yep. The OG interrupt draw 2 and play next. You have to draw 2 cards from top of own draw pile, so you can't draw from your opponent's draw pile. Like, you can't do that with the other ones either, but, you know, just it clarifies, so that's good. Words of Discouragement, in hand control or type 2, maybe. Alright, on to evil characters, here we go. We're gonna be cruising by the time we get to heroes and get enhancements, and oh boy. So give me any delegates, yeah, decent with Canaanites, that's about it. Goliath, good splashable character, great with other Philistines, of course, but just a very strong evil character in general. You should be familiar with Goliath because he's the same thing in rotation. Lot's wife, yep, can't go past her. She's a Canaanite female, so works well with Stone of Thebes. Can band any evil character, so even your, any of your opponent's evil characters, doesn't have to be male, doesn't have to be human. Any evil character, pretty strong card. Philistine Armor Bearer, yep, Philistine staple. Even if you're just splashing Goliath, you can still splash an Armor Bearer to either get Goliath out earlier or to get him back from the discard pile. Philistine Garrison, pretty good. Immune to lone heroes, definitely a good standalone evil character where you don't necessarily need enhancements to back him up, and if you use him, you're probably going to make your opponent play something powerful in order to beat you. So it can be a good value blocker there. Shechem Canaanite, maybe useful in Canaanites, but that's about it. Simon the Magician, a decent splashable card if you're expecting a lot of NT, but it's pretty much only disciples for NT, maybe some angels. Strong Angel is pretty much the main one where Simon is useful. Sisera, pretty good. Judges and red are both, really, gold and red are both common, judges especially. But also, I mean, maybe both, especially. Like, red is pretty good with all the banding stuff that is in there with all the warriors. So, get some good blocks there. Just note that it also makes your opponent's enhancement CBN. So, do not block their red or gold hero with Sisera unless you're going to get initiative. 12-finger giant in I blame it a dedicated Philistine deck. That's about it. One of Thebes, dedicated Canaanites deck. That's it. Same thing with Abimelech and Jezebel. Probably play them in Canaanites, but not otherwise. Greeks, maybe. Scribe is decent. It's good for a long game. Not an actual Pharisee or Sadducee itself, though, so it doesn't work with stuff like Tenants Kill the Sun, just a hireling and pretension. Alright, on to Brown. Let's go. We got some bangers in Brown. Anger Mob goes in every deck. Just, yep, so good. I'm just kidding. Yeah, it doesn't actually ever say to turn your heroes face up, so all your heroes stay face down. Just kidding. I think maybe that's errated, or maybe it's just, that would be too silly. People did argue for that at one point, though. Complainers, sneaky good, kind of underrated evil character. You can exchange a hero in battle with a hero in opponent's territory, so give it a hero that gives you initiative to play Gib Trick or Human's Plot, and you negate their hero abilities, so the new hero they bring in probably won't work unless you choose a CBN hero, but you probably shouldn't be choosing a CBN hero unless it gives you initiative or something. Foul Spirit is decent in Mono Brown. It's probably the only case in which I'd play it. Gomer, quite good. Banned to a male evil character, so almost as flexible as Lot's wife, but it also cannot be negated. There's a Crimson Gomer that we will get to eventually. She kind of does the same thing, but she's not CBN. Haman is okay. It can do some destruction on your opponent's territory there, but pretty easy to negate, so it's probably only used in some mono brown defenses. King Ahab may be used in some mono brown defenses. King Amon, I would definitely use him in a completely mono brown defense, especially because King Manasseh is fairly strong as well. You can just get your enhancements back. You can play Gib Trick as many times as your heart desires, or at least your opponent will let you. Definitely better. King Amon definitely better than King Nadab, but pretty much the same effect. Just, you know, Amon has better initiative. Rehoboam, side battles. Side battles are good. Side battles are fun. They can help you win the regular battles, so it's, yeah, works out well. But it's also confusing, which is why people don't, or why they're not on as many cards these days. King Zedekiah, here's the Dungeon Malachi CBN guy. Pretty good in mono brown, because even if you don't have Dungeon, it's still good initiative, play that plot. There are a lot of cards that aren't that great, but which is why, which is what I was thinking, which is why I was thinking this should go a little bit faster, but yeah, nope, let's see, how long are we going now? Oh, gosh, might be John Hendricks here at this rate, with his 5.5 hour podcast. No, I definitely won't get there. I will fall asleep before then, but I don't know, maybe I'll just fall asleep on camera and you guys will have to put up with it. Okay, Jeering Youths. You can play an OT Brown enhancement if blocking an OT human, so it's a play first, which is pretty decent, and you can play your Gib Trick, you can play your plot. It's mono brown, maybe. It's a mono brown, maybe, yeah. Uza, it's just goes in every deck, pretty much. Similar to Falling Away. It's just way too easy to use, and you can discard artifacts that you don't necessarily have a use for anymore. Like maybe you got one use of Holy Grail and you don't think you'll need the other, or same thing with Capture Dark, or you use I Am Creator and you're later in the game, just gives a good use for that. Just a classic chump block. So Malachite Slave, there's a new version of that, which if there's a new version of the card, like a legacy rare, probably means it's playable. This one is definitely one of those where you can do Soul Gen and get a human evil character from your discard pile, like you know, Damsel or Sabbath Breaker, you know, something to get you some good speed. King Manny, I already kind of mentioned him with King Amon. He's definitely more useful with magicians and or demons, but he's good in splash decks as well because he can play some of the most powerful enhancements like, you know, DOU, Forgotten History, Gibby Night Trickery, and Haman's Plot. On to Crimson. These two are like straight Babylonian type 2 evil characters. Like if I'm playing straight Babs, probably only in type 2. Kind of similar with Babylonian Soldiers, although the initiative is good, so it's kind of one of the like last evil characters I would cut if I needed more space. Here's like Gomer I was talking about. I don't think she's quite as good because she can be negated. Judas Iscariot, he is pretty good in Scrolls Only because a lot of the battle winners that Scrolls Only has are discard, at least a lot of the best ones, so including Angel of the Lord. So Judas can be a pretty strong blocker, and also is protected while he remains in play, so no Holy Grail on Judas as long as he's blocked once. King Belshazzar is great. Get that Belshazzar's Banquet back and use it a second time. This is the guy that can play Carried into Exile first, can also play Invoking Terror, and you also get a hand look, so you'll get to know if they'll be able to negate it. Not great in general, but pretty good in some niche decks. King Rehoboam does pretty much the same thing as the brown one. King Zimri can be somewhat useful. If I'm playing Crimson though, I'm probably just playing Babylonians, and I don't think he makes the cut these days. Same thing with Leviathan. 12/12, so it's pretty good against, if I have the numbers, heroes, but you'll probably only surprise him once. Nebuchadnezzar, he is the goat of Crimson evil characters. The just ability to tutor anything, or any OT Crimson card and add it to battle, Whether it's Belshazzar's Banquet to get that discard and protect right away, or Dream to get the draw 3 in play, or just another evil character, Nurgle to get those CBN enhancements. Yeah, Nebby is quite good. Classic and Scrolls only, so. Nebby Shazman, he's okay. Good initiative. Exchanging Lost Souls can be good in Scrolls only, where some of them are protected from females or New Testament heroes, which are not played quite as often as the others. Nurgle, good CBN enhancements. Quite good. I guess I'll mention Queen Maka since I talked about it before. You can activate Ashura Pull from your deck or your discard pile. So, yeah, pretty decent if they're, surprise them with that. And then you can play your Great Image or, other strong Crimson enhancements. Sapphira's maybe an honorable mention. She's good, fight with the numbers, but I don't know if she's necessarily makes the cut, even Scrolls only these days. Seven Suns, great in a demon defense. Get your King of Towers back, get your Trembling Demon back. Yeah, definitely useful there. Astrologers, yep, good with Magicians, good with Babs. Splash, definitely worthwhile, especially if you got Invoking Terror. Can play Bel's Banquet, can play Death of Unrighteous. Good card all around. Chaldeans is kind of similar. You'd rather not have to play Chaldeans, but if you're playing Babylonians, you probably want them just so you can have enough Magicians for charms. Alright, on to gold. Archelaus is alright. Herod defense, sure. Egyptian defense, you probably play that. You probably play that. Probably not that one. Probably Egyptian Warden. Wise Men is kind of on the brink. Emperor Claudius is good in a standalone defense, but there aren't that many people playing NT offenses, so probably wouldn't bother. Herod Agrippa, very select defenses. Herod the Great, he's pretty good standalone and strong against fight by the numbers banding and stuff, because you can just leave Helez or Mahirai in battle and take or kick all the rest out, or if they do like Aaron Moses, you can leave Aaron in battle. So yeah, he's pretty strong if you're just kind of doing standalone or obviously a Herod specific defense. Yes, King of Tyrus, the gold version. We'll get to the orange version, which does the same thing, but he's orange. And the gold version goes in pretty much every gold deck I would build, and yeah, probably, or it splashes pretty easily into other decks. If you're playing gold or orange, it kind of depends on what else you're splashing him with, but definitely splash one of him in some other decks. Genesis Egyptians, definitely, yep, Pharaoh's Baker and Pharaoh's Cupbearer, both useful in that. Keep them both. Potiphar's Wife probably goes with those Genesis Egyptians as well. Or, well, Potiphar and Potiphar's Wife. And some of these are okay, but here's another guy that you definitely want with your Genesis Egyptians. Get some drawing, like together with some of these, with Dreaming Pharaoh here, and then the Pharaoh's Baker, and then Swift Horses and Egyptian Horses that make Egyptians one of the fastest defenses in Scrolls only. And Egyptian Magicians can see some value there too. Good one that I mentioned earlier with Invoking Terror and a few other things. Definitely a good splashable evil character. Oh boy, I think we might make it. Emperor Nero, another immune to lone heroes evil character similar to Philistine Garrison. Vitellius, very good and very good Scrolls only card. Good drawing, CBN by a good card. Doesn't get initiative very well, but that will definitely make your opponent play something if they're don't want to lose their hero and you're in mutual or something like that. And just getting the drawing is the important part, really. Lots of draw potential with that card, and people playing splashy or offenses. I guess I'll mention Hard-Hearted Religious Leaders, very fringe Pharisee card. It's like, if you're playing Pharisees just straight, you probably play it, but that's pretty much it. Job's Wife, you're playing straight gray, maybe. That's that's the best I can say with her. She's a very strong maybe. Playing Syrians, this guy's pretty good, preventing the next evil enhancement or next enhancement opponent plays. So you can use them in snipe battles, and you can use them to. Your opponent has to play something, and then it'll be prevented, and maybe they'll pass initiative to you, or maybe you're smaller and you prevent their negate from stopping your battle winner. Naaman, very strong ability, just making your OT enhancements CBN. There aren't too many OT enhancements, though, that you need to make Naaman CBN that you can like splash him into stuff, but in mono gray, he's good. Pharisees, yeah, if you're playing Pharisees, have at least one of these, maybe two. Proud Pharisee, definitely use him in Pharisee defenses, good speed, and play first ability. Those are definitely signs of a good card. Sabbath Breaker, drawing is important in Scrolls Only, and there's a rotation version of him as well, so that does the same thing. So you know it's a good card, Legacy Rare worthy card, yeah. And I know some of you are going to comment like, oh, you just went right past that card, like that card's so good, so fun. Well, this is my channel, my video, so I get to decide. And there are so many cards here. I'm not even halfway through. Okay, trappers, they capture and or they get a card out of your opponent's hand. That's pretty good, and it's free. It's on a character, so you can do it every turn, as long as you have an NT gray card in hand, I guess. And it's CBN, so yeah, definitely a usable card. If you're playing Pharisees, it definitely goes in. Not even, no questions there. Okay, the only multi-brigade evil character in, or like rainbow evil character in Scrolls Only, and yeah, not worth it. Don't bother. Deceiving Spirit is decent, especially in splash decks. It's good initiative to play enhancements of any brigade. I mean, you have to select the brigade, so you can't, once you choose one, you have to stick to it, but yeah, good if you've got a pure splash deck where you're just playing like the best evil enhancements of each evil brigade. King of Tyrus, kind of talked about him before when I mentioned the gold one. Prince of this World, another good standalone evil character, immune to lone heroes and big numbers. It's a good combination. 7 Wicked Spirits, just kind of for fun. Spirit of Temptation is decent. CBI band is good. And it's a pretty broad band, but you probably don't want to use it in a pure Demon's defense, because then you're relying on banding to your opponent's stuff. It's a good combo with Egyptian Magicians, though. You can place a card from your hand beneath your deck, and then you can reveal it with Egyptian Magicians and add it to battle. And my wrist is kind of sore from clicking the button here. Alright, Trembling Demon. You know Trembling Demon and Wandering Spirit if you watched last week's video. If you didn't watch them, well, that's on you. Damsel, very strong drawing character, cannot be interrupted. Definitely usable. Like, they had to tame the rotation version down. That's how you know a Scrolls card is good. You got an extra ability, but it has a limit on the draw. Syrian Archer, good in straight Assyrians, which pretty solid Scrolls only defense. Also a solid rotation defense, but I don't know if I necessarily use Archer for like classic. There is a rotation version though. Assyrian Archer, or Siege Army, yep, definitely good. Use that with Assyrians. Assyrian Survivor, yep, use that with Assyrians. Outside of Assyrians, probably not. Well, Assyrian Survivor, maybe. You can splash that a little bit more easily. Assyrian Siege Army, probably not. Balaam, great magician, great way to get back your Confusion of Mind or Rain Becomes Dust and prevent your opponent's enhancements. Well, prevent all enhancements, but you just play your curse with big toughness and win by a stalemate or something like that, and you can do that every turn. Pretty good. I love these sections where there's not really any evil characters worth talking about. Maybe Sargon is worth it in a pure Assyrian defense. Get your Assyrian camp out. Maybe only if you're using like Authority of Christ or something, and you want to save your evil characters from being discarded. Prince of this World, pale green is same as the orange one. Another semi-decent Assyrian card, not great. Pretty decent Assyrian card, just CBN banding. If an Assyrian king is in play, Rabshka is good. I would use that with Assyrians because of the ability to make 2k horses CBN, which can be useful against any fight with the numbers stuff. You can play 2k horses to make that CBN, interrupt the battle, so you're interrupting their negate, and then you can play, your capture card or something like that. Tartan, if you've got room for him, then sure. User is kind of similar to Deceiving Spirit. Well, pretty much exactly the same ability as Deceiving Spirit, except it's also a magician, which can be useful for charms and divination, all that. But also bigger numbers, so less likely to get initiative. Luminous Snares. It's a card that you really want to play, but you usually don't have room for it, because either she's going to be negated, or you're going to get her early on, and you're just not going to get initiative, and she's not going to do anything. And but long game card, yes. Fun card, yes. Great card, no. Alright, on to the evil fortresses, or I guess all the fortresses, but evil ones first, I guess. Gates of Jerusalem, decent if you're playing evil kings and queens of Judah, which are okay. High places, probably not. Assyrian camp, yeah, if you're playing Assyrians and Authority of Christ, then definitely. Gates of Samaria, very specific deck if you're playing that Kings of Israel in Samaria deck, which, defensive heavy usually. Just playing a whole bunch of Samaria sites. It's a very strong ability, but you probably won't see it in most situations. Damon's Gallows, nope, not anymore. Now that you can replace plots. Headquarters, I might not even play in a straight Babylonian defense. Same thing with High Priest Palace, unless I'm in House of Rimmon. Like, those are all kind of the same thing for different themes on defense, and I'd pretty much only play them if I was also playing a deck that had Authority of Christ, and I had enough characters of those themes, so I wasn't, like, splashing or anything. Philistine Outpost, great. Evil Fortress, go get your Philistines from deck, and you can recur them from discard. Basically, you just get a generic Philistine from your deck, and then get one back from your territory. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, okay. Pithom is decent. The best part about it is that it holds a gold curse. If there were more gold curses in Scrolls Only, it'd probably be more worth playing, but it's also an Exodus Fortress, so you can search for it with 7 Years of Plenty. Raiders Camp, it's a fun card, but I don't know. It's tough to use. You really got to build around it, and but if you get it going, it can be very strong. It's like you capture their hero in battle, and you not only win that battle, but you win the battle after that as well. So Darkness, maybe multiplayer. Otherwise, nope. Gates of Hell, yep, very good in demon defenses. Good add to battle. It's got a rotation version, so yeah, definitely play it. If you're doing demons, Tower of Thebes. If you're doing Canaanites, then yep. I would use it. Dust and Ashes, good for Job. If you've got the new Dust and Ashes, but you're playing Classic, I would still use this one. CBN, places set aside. It's just it's not, the new one isn't quite as flexible, I guess, or I don't know. It's not as protected. It plays to territory and only bounces, and it can be negated, so. Fishing Boat, yep, definitely play it if you're doing Disciples and Classic. Just be careful of Darius' Decree. Goshen, probably not. Probably not. Any version of Goshen. Herod's Temple, yeah, I would use it if you're doing NT-focused offense. Maybe if you're doing NT-focused defense, like Herod's, where you can get it with Herod the Great. But, saving your hero from a Christian martyr, or saving your evil character from Angel of the Lord can be very strong, especially early in the game when it's not going to cost you a whole lot for discarding on the top of your deck. Plus you can hold more artifacts, so that's good. No. Judge's Seat, type 2. Type 2 I would. Type 1, no. Obadiah's Caves, if I'm playing Strike Green, you betcha. Protecting Green Brigade Profits from capture is actually pretty good, which I know I said the Blue Tassels wasn't all that great. That's pretty much just because it takes up an artifact slot. If there was a fortress that protected your heroes from capture, I would probably consider using it in almost every deck, just because in Scrolls Only, Magic Charms, and Unholy Writ are everywhere. Storehouse only in Genesis Egyptians because of Dreaming Pharaoh. Sorry, Garden Tomb, but you're not good anymore. Throne of Avid, definitely good in Classic for sure. In Rotation, or I mean in Scrolls Only, it's still decent, but it loses a lot when you don't have Samuel, because it's harder to get out David, and also the David in Scrolls Only that's purple is got nerfed with the ignore part as well. It's King David, and yeah, it doesn't work quite the same. Wall of Protection is decent, especially if you're doing Fight by the Numbers banding. You don't want your opponent to be bringing in your dudes, but you got to be careful with Goliath because you wouldn't be able to present Zerubbabel's Temple. Yeah, pretty much only if you're doing that theme, which I talked about before with Covenant of Phineas and all that, protecting your Zerubbabel's Temple priest from everything, pretty much. Abraham's Descendant, yep, good in Genesis, or yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the only blue offense you'd be running in Scrolls Only or Classic. Abraham's Servant is kind of on the borderline. If I've got space for it, then yeah, Answer to Prayer definitely would be using that one. Just a CBN, either go find a battle winner or go find another hero. Pretty good. No. Book of Hosea is it's a maybe. It doesn't interrupt the battle, so it's not quite as good, but it's a draw 3 and play next. And the rest of the ability doesn't really matter, so don't worry about that. Book of Jashar kind of goes right along with it. If I'm using one, I'm probably using the other, because you can play one to draw 3, then play the other to play Book of Jashar to draw 3. It's good in Classic, where you can do the Type 2 Disciples of the Lamb Book of Jashar combo. Not quite as good, because you can only play Son of God 4 times in one turn now, but yeah. Blue enhancements. Cup of Wrath, nice sided battle, side to battle enhancement. Maybe use it if I have room, or if I've got stuff on defense that I want to do side battle wise, like Death of Unrighteous or Great Image. Nice. Forgiveness of Joseph, definitely using that. CBN on the Foof and Joseph, so CBN enhancements that you can play on a 2/2 hero. Pretty good. Jacob Berries of Foreign Gods. Probably wouldn't use it in most Genesis offenses. I mean, if it's all you got, definitely use it. But Just Before Pharaoh is a great example of a card that I would use way before Jacob Berries of Foreign Gods. It's definitely more flexible. You can hit Unholy Writ and Magic Charms, and it is CBN on Joseph. So definitely want to be using that. Also CBN on Benjamin. Both of them give you great initiative. So that's kind of the whole premise, I guess, of the Genesis offense in Scrolls Only, is you're just trying to abuse Joseph and Benjamin and their CBN enhancements that you can that go along with them. Numerous Scissor Stars, probably not. Great card, and that was reprinted in Prophecies of Christ. The reprint is great. Is way over the top as far as like compared to this version, and yeah, probably not useful enough. I mean, some Noah used to be more useful. Maybe it's still okay with the old Jacob, or the Foof Jacob, where you can play first, because choose the blocker is still decent, even though you can't choose your own evil characters. Poor Reuben's Torn Clothes, no longer good because the ignore rule change. Long Day, kind of a fun one that was used for like combo decks back in the day, but probably wouldn't see it anytime in competitive play these days. Well, Reopen may be okay if you're doing Genesis Egyptians, get that Egypt or get that Pharaoh's Prison out to start drawing, or to get the CBN Enslaved by Egypt. Ambush City, sneaky good card that's used in a heavier, maybe like more focused Judge's offense. It's great to get around a Balaam's Disobedience. Battle Prayer used to be better. Deborah's Directive is a card that's kind of on the edge. The usability in Judge's decks. Usually you can abandon your opponent's heroes and CBN by an evil card, so I don't know, it's good, but it's kind of niche. Maybe use it with grapes, I guess. So you can bring in your opponent's offense and then use grapes to shuffle them all away. Ehud's Dagger, definitely used in a more focused judge's offense. If you're a little more splashed, it's maybe on the borderline of necessary, but it's just great with Ehud and people having evil characters like King of Terror, so you can choose to block and then just pop them with Ehud's Dagger. But also just remember, Emperors and Herods both count as kings as well. Nebuchadnezzar is a king. You can use it on him. Mary's Prophetic Act is one that I really want to play in gold decks, but you just can't quite get the value, or that you you just can't quite find the space for it. Like it's great value, but if you get it late in the game, it's just it's a dead card, so it gets cut first. Doesn't necessarily win you a battle, but it does take out your opponent's falling away if you get it at the right time. Meaning the Messiah, good card. Good, not great. Usable if I've got a few Luke or John heroes, but there aren't too many that are all that good. So it's kind of like Simeon and Woman at the Well. That's pretty much it. Samson's Sacrifice would be a lot better if it didn't mean that you didn't win the battle. Like you have to give up a rescue in order to do it, which type 2 maybe, type 1 probably not. Samuel's Edict, yeah, this is a good one. This is a classic, viable card, of course, as well if you're using judges. Even though Samuel was banned, or at least the Rock of Ages one, if you're playing Classic, you can use the Cloud of Witnesses one, but you can also just get away with using the Meek one. You're better off just using Gideon, of course, because then you've got Angel Under the Oak to work with as well. But that's pretty much the biggest use case in Classic, is just playing it on Gideon to get the CBN aspect of it. Sword Against Sword, another side battle card, can be used to pull off some shenanigans. It's CBN if used by a judge's reference hero. The Axe of Solomon, another shenanigans-worthy card. You exchange the card with another good enhancement, and then the way that it works, like the place new card in hand is like it was intended as clarifying text of like there's where you put the enhancement, but the way that exchange works, the enhancement goes into battle, it activates, and then Axe of Solomon actually bounces it back to your hand, so you can use an enhancement twice. So that's another reason to want to include Mary's Prophetic Act, because then you can get it from your deck with Axe of Solomon, and you can play it. It doesn't pass initiative unless you're in mutual or stalemate or whatever, but it's got no numbers. And then you can play it again, so you can take out their Falling Away and their Christian Martyr, or their Destruction, or their Mayhem, or whatever's left. So like if I'm playing mono gold, I guess I'm playing both of those. If I'm maybe playing Axe of Solomon over Mary's Prophetic Act if I have to cut one or the other, because Axe of Solomon to something like Eli's on Advice, or of course Samuel's Edict, very strong plays there. Capturing Canaan, decent in a straight judge's deck because it can be made CBN by Angel with the Secret Name. The Stars, no, I wouldn't use it, but it is a judge's card just to note if you have enough angels that you are using in your judge's deck. Elith's Sound Advice, I'm just reading words and whatever word I see first, I guess. Eli's Sound Advice is a great staple for judges card, or for judges decks. Probably even, you're probably not playing a Tabernacle Priest deck, but you probably have some decks with Tabernacle Priest splashed in. If you've got some judges as well, then you should play it. If you don't have judges, you probably don't need it, but it is a decent CBP negate. So, yeah, here we go. New Beginning. The infamous erratiful card. It's been errated many times, but yeah, I think it's in a reasonable spot right now. It's sometimes you might want to play it, other times, most of the time, you probably don't. But it is a very fun card, or I don't know. Some people might think it's not fun, but I think it's fun. So, I think I saw one card that was playable there. Baptism of Jesus. If NT Prophets were any good, then it would be playable, but there aren't enough good NT Green Prophets. There's Simeon and Anna. That's pretty much it. Oh, there's John the Baptist as well, but those are the only ones that are remotely playable. Habakkuk Stands Watch, reasonable card. If you've got enough profits and you've got enough space, then I'd play it. Otherwise, nah. Plague of Frogs. In my Moses' staff deck with Benaiah and Moses, yeah. Otherwise, probably not. It wasn't all that useful until Foreign Wives came out, and you needed that regardless of immunity or protection part. Revisions is kind of on the brink of playable. The draw 2 is nice, and the choose is great. So in Scrolls Only, I would probably try to fit it into a deck, but in Classic, probably not. Search is search. It's like, it's good but not great. Usually you just want to have enough good cards in your deck that you don't need search. But if you've got one and you've got space, then you might as well use it, because it can just go get your best card and kind of be another copy of that. The problem is that it does have numbers, so you do have to be careful about passing initiative with it. No. Thought about that one. Side battle, sure. You can utilize it in some cases, but it's a nice target, I guess, for hidden treasures. Nice enhancement to play first for hidden treasures. Make sure that you pull it off and do whatever shenanigans you want to do with your defense. 2 bears, great card. Use it in your profits decks, even if you're splashing a few profits, still good. Isaiah's Call, yep. If you're using Isaiah, you want Call. You probably also want Live Coal. Live Coal is good even without Isaiah. If you're playing enough gold and or silver and green heroes, then you probably want it, just because there are some curses that are annoying to have to deal with, like Confusion of Mind and Rain Becomes Dust, and then also you can use it in battle as a negate. So yeah, pretty flexible there. Wheel Within a Wheel, definitely usable if you've got enough OT Angels and enough green and or silver heroes to play it on. So Angel Under the Oak is going to be the biggest target for Wheel Within a Wheel, but also Captain, Michael can be decent options there. Feast of Trumpets is probably the 3rd best drawing feast, I guess. You want to play Pentecost and First Fruits before that, but can be kind of okay. I mean, it's symmetrical, so your opponent does the same thing you do, and you're not actually gaining cards, but you're getting to select cards in your hand that you don't necessarily need. It's kind of like Bronze Laver. We can put some demons on the bottom and gates them out or something like that. Also, it's not optional though, so it's another card that combos with Gifts of the Magi, or if you choose 4, you and your opponent both underdeck 4, and then you get to draw 8, and they only get to draw 4. So it's kind of fun that way. And if your opponent puts up like RBD or something like that, Rain Becomes Dust, then you can just choose 1, and hopefully you don't get hurt too bad by it. But it is not optional, so you have to be aware of the RBD potential. Nunc Dimittis is a decent card, if only there were more musicians or NT Prophets to work with that were like reasonably good. But there's Kenaniah, there's David, if you use the green one. Isaiah is a musician, so definitely usable in some cases. I think especially if you're using a deck with Nazareth, it can be good. Give you some good card selection without searching. Faith and High Priest was maybe okay. It's not there's just not enough NT stuff to really make it worth it. You're probably not playing it in Disciples because you don't really need it. And most other NT themes just aren't quite strong enough to be playing it to begin with. Okay. Authority of Christ, yes. Big yes. If you're playing purple, yes. Obviously the rotation one is a little bit stronger with Disciples, but this one doesn't get tossed by Colosseum, so that's notable. And just remember it's symmetrical, so it hits yours as well. Man, who would have thought you were going to go through and see every single redemption card printed before like 2013 in this video, right? We got Great Faith. There's 2 different versions of it that do slightly different things. The older one can grab evil enhancements as well, well, actually, can it? Because the way that Axe of Solomon works, the exchange does put it into battle. The H-Deck one is worded slightly differently, where it has a parenthetical where it's you may place in hand or battle, so you get the choice. But you don't get to use it twice like you do with Axe of Solomon. Not even sure how this one works with the evil enhancements. If you can even target them, maybe it has to be a legal target, or for something that you can play in battle. But it used to be where you could get the evil enhancement, or an enhancement of a different brigade, and just add it to your hand instead. No, a lot of times people will be playing that to go to Authority of Christ, though. Or Reach of Desperation, get some drawing. Big Disciples card here for playing Disciples. You want to play that. My Lord and my God. Peace Treaty, not quite as good anymore because you don't get the ignore part, but it can still ban to a human hero. So if you're playing Purple Kings, you probably want it because it's one of the only enhancements, like one of the few decent enhancements that you can play off of Throne of David, because it has to be an OT purple enhancement. Speaking of OT purple enhancements that are decent to play off Throne of David, Prosperity is an okay one. Get a little bit more drawing. I don't know that I would use it unless I'm like mono purple, but a lot of times I'm going to be splashing with that, like with red or maybe green. Reach of Desperation, interrupt the battle, draw 3 cards, play next enhancement. Has a legacy rare. Yeah, it's a good one. If I'm playing purple, I'm playing that most likely. Especially if I'm mono purple, but if I'm splashing, it's a little less there just because it's not Old Testament, so it doesn't go with Throne, but yeah, still good. Unified Kingdom. Really wish it said interrupt the battle and ban to any number of OT human heroes, but it just interrupts Wall of Protection. But it is CBN if used by David, which would be great if there was a purple version of David that could use this, but there is a green version of David that can use it, and maybe the red version? Do they do the same thing? I don't know. The green version can definitely use it, though, because he has a use other enhancements clause, so that was a popular deck back in the day. I think it was Josiah that ran it, or that... well, maybe it's Jerome that created it, Josiah that piloted it. But just a whole bunch of Purple Kings. I think it was 4 at that point, might have been 5. I don't remember exactly when that changed, but just a bunch of copies of Unified Kingdom, David, and Hidden Treasures to ban all these Purple Kings and Isaiah, and they were all protected from opponents. Pretty good. Valley of Salt. Interrupt and win the battle. Cannot be negated if used by King Amaziah. If Amaziah was still good, then that would be much better, but still usable if you're doing Throne and Purple Kings. Council of Abigail, great card. If you're using purple or red, do it. Pentecost, great card if you're using purple or teal. You probably want it in your deck. Notably does not count for the territory class limit with the scroll version, so because it is not a territory class enhancement, but you can still use it as one because it has a set-aside ability. Pass over him, usable in Disciples, otherwise probably not. Soldier's Prayer, great card to use in Classic. Go and get your Solomon's Dream or whatever. Great card in the Scrolls only as well. Go and get your Foreign Sword or your Bravery of David, and then so you can get it from your deck, or then you can go to your discard pile and use it a second time. Battlecry, maybe. Only bans in your heroes, so but it does interrupt the battle, so that's kind of nice. Bravery of David, pretty similar to Samuel's Edict, not quite as strong. It's a little more limited, but same general idea here, and it's good with like Azahel because you can choose the blocker, choose someone that will give you initiative and that won't ban, or if they do ban, you can negate the ban and then discard the evil character that did the ban. So if you're using Warriors, definitely do it. If you're using a lot of banding, then maybe you don't need it, but it does still have a negate, so it's maybe usable. If you're mono red, maybe play David's Mighty Men, just because Azahel can choose Warrior class evil character, and Warrior class evil characters are fairly common. Pretty much every defense will have at least one, except for maybe like Pharisees, but even then they've got Emperor Vitellius, so they've got him. David's Triumph, interrupt, battle winner, cannot be negated by Philistine, so it's a little bit limited there. If you're playing mono red, then yeah, I would use it. I probably could have just left the whole video at if it's a cannot be negated battle winner, or it interrupts the battle and lets you play something, or interrupts the battle, wins the battle, then it's a useful enhancement. But, you know, it's kind of fun to go through all the cards. That's kind of what I've been doing in preparation for Mr. Classic, is I just went through pretty much all of my Classic Scrolls cards and got out the usable ones, and so I was like, well, might as well just do a video of that. Of course, I can go through it a lot faster when I'm not trying to explain it to everyone, or explain it to the camera, I guess. But here we are doing that. It's gonna be good. I took off work tomorrow, so I can finish packing and everything. So, and by tomorrow, I mean today, day that it's being released. It's almost tomorrow, not quite yet. All right. Well, it's almost today, I guess. Right now, it's almost tomorrow for me. It's 11 o'clock or so. Little insight into my recording nonsense, and that's probably why I'm kind of rambling here. It's getting late. And that's why I don't want to do editing. That's full behind-the-scenes stuff right there. All right, Warrior Spear, decent with Foreign Sword, because you can top deck someone's evil character and then discard it. It's kind of nice. I guess you have to have a couple of guys that are banding together, though. Also, it's potential soul gen. So if your opponent doesn't have a lost soul out, and this is all you got, you might as well just make a battle challenge and hope for the best. You do lose it after battle if you hit a lost soul, though. So be careful about that, or just be mindful of that. Wheel Within a Wheel. This is the old version from Prophets, not as good as the Foof version, which gets you some angels, but you can use it to exchange for Ahimelech the Hittite and bounce the evil character in battle, which is kind of fun. But Ahimelech still has to be in your deck, so you have to be careful with that. Maybe use Invoking Terror to underdeck him before you attack. There you go. Alright, Trumpet and Sword, usable in mono red, yeah, especially if you're splashing a few Tabernacle Priests, like doing the 7 trumpets thing I was talking about before, where you bring in your priest and then have him banned in Ahimelech. Trumpet and Sword goes into that deck fairly well, and it works well with Uriah the Hittite, which we'll get to him. He makes discard abilities CBN. Angel Sword, if you're playing mono angels, I would definitely put it in here. Put it on, equip it to Michael, and you get a play first CBN enhancement. Pretty good if you're playing mono angels. Probably also playing Army of the Lord. Maybe, I guess. I don't know. If you're playing mono angels, you might just want to play the non-warrior class versions of those of the Fight the Numbers heroes, so Captain and Strong Angel. But yeah, if you want to use Army of the Lord, it's a good way to do it. Birth Foretold, great card in Scrolls only if you're playing enough silver and you have space for it. If your deck isn't very fast, which if you're playing a lot of silver, it's probably not. But you can go and get your Son of God and at least have that. You might not be able to use New Jerusalem. Consuming Fire is it's right on the borderline. Like, I want to play it in Judges, especially because preventing someone's Uzzah can be great for your Gideon attacks, Angel Under the Oak to Gideon. But yeah, it probably isn't going to be making the cut in most decks. Flaming Sword can maybe be used in a mono angels deck. Protection of Angels definitely used in mono angels because you can play it on Michael. It's an interrupt and protect, and if it's CBN, then it's pretty good. Michael has some pretty chunky numbers, so yeah, I would use that in mono angels. Protection of Jerusalem, maybe not in type 1, but if you're using Assyrians and you're using Isaiah and you have enough angels, then I'd say go for it. Striking Hair, definitely in mono angels, probably in a few other angel splashes. Interrupt and Battle Winner, same pattern. Interrupt and play the next enhancement on Swift Beings. Probably not worth it, and probably not enough, probably not useful enough to merit using. If it drew 3 cards, even 2 cards, definitely, but it doesn't draw any cards, so it's not quite as good. Sneaky good card. It's like a siege, but for heroes. So if your opponent has a lot of evil characters down and you think you can beat them with all of your heroes, then go for it. Works great with Captain of the Host. The third seal. It's a card that doesn't really work like you would think it works when you read it, but it doesn't work as it was intended to work. Each player with an odd number of evil characters in territory must discard one evil character, owner's choice. Doesn't have to be one of your evil characters, so if you have an odd number of evil characters in your territory, you can discard the evil character in battle. So that's kind of fun, and it cannot be negated, so just be careful, because if your opponent also has an odd number of evil characters in territory, then they get to discard somebody as well. One of your evil characters in territory, which you'll have at least one of. Your roommate Zacharias may be usable in mono silver. Probably not. Yeah, Gloria might be usable as well. You don't really have enough anti-angels to make it worth it. Alright, on to teal. Means we're almost done with the good enhancements. Holy Into the Lord. I would only use it in like a super aggressive, very light defense deck. Because revealing your hand and discarding all the revealed evil cards can be... I mean, it pretty much just opens you up for your next turn unless you have some... I guess like, magic charms, or you've got good standalone evil characters like King of Tyrus down in your... your evil characters in territory get shuffled. If you're playing Syrians and you're using House of Rimmon, that's when you want to use it. Other than that, probably not. Joy to Strength, decent. If you're playing with enough teal, I would use it. Jordan Interrupted, maybe. There's not a whole lot of options for teal. I would probably play Scapegoat before Jordan Interrupted. Just negate and discard all evil enhancements in play, and curses in play, cannot be negated, so it's pretty good. Trumpet Blast, just blast away all of your opponent's evil characters, but you do have to have an evil fortress or occupied site in play in order to use the effect. But the 7 strength is still pretty decent as well. Just can help you in a mutual situation, like against a King of Tyrus or something. Zadok Anoint Solomon, one of the few territory class tutors broad tutors in the game, so it makes running or like splashing a few Tabernacle Priests kind of worth it if you can justify it. Zeal for the Lord, one of the best good enhancements, because it's an interrupt and a battle winner, and it cannot be negated if used by Phineas, which if you're using Zeal, you're using Phineas, and vice versa. If you're using Phineas, don't be afraid to bluff, because apparently it works against some players like Jay, according to Josiah. First Fruits is it's the second best drawing feast here. You have to set aside all of your heroes, and on return you discard a good card, but you get to draw 4, so it's the same net benefit as Pentecost, but you can discard a card that's not as useful. The downside is that it is not optional, so if you set aside all your heroes and your opponent activates RBD on their turn, then you will have to discard a good card from hand to mill yourself for 4 cards. Not a great deal. So be careful with that. He is risen. He is risen indeed. I expect you all to say that with me there. Yeah, just got a Legacy Bear. Still a decent card in Classic. Probably wouldn't play it in Scrolls Only, because NT Females lost a lot with the Garden Tomb, the ignorable change that nerfed Garden Tomb. If you know your opponent is going to be playing demons and you really want to tech for that, you can play a Child is Born. Otherwise, probably I wouldn't worry about it. Consider the Lilies, good NT white. I feel like you don't really need to go through many of the white cards in Scrolls Only, just because Garden Tomb was really the big thing, and it's not all that great anymore. There's some musician stuff like Kenaniah. It's good, but yeah, the rest of it is just kind of like nothing. You don't really expect to see any of these cards in a competitive Scrolls Only scenario, I guess. Maybe Transfiguration, maybe, and that, and like Words of Encouragement that just splashed into a speed deck or something, kind of like the old school Speed Freak. But you probably won't see that in Scrolls Only either. So, all right, heroes, we're getting close. Yay. Genesis heroes, you're probably going to want Asher if you're running Sons of Jacob. Is good for long game stuff. Start getting your stuff recycled. You can get some of your heroes back, get some of your enhancements back. Benjamin, he is pretty solid. I was talking about Benjamin and Joseph. They're kind of your heavy hitters in scrolls only, or in this offense. Because you get the CBN enhancements. Dan, he's probably necessary in that offense as well to get at least a little bit of speed, because there isn't a whole lot of drawing on the offense. So you're going to get a lot of it from your defense with Gen Egyptians. But Dan can be nice to help out there as well. Ehud is definitely better in the Judges offense with the gold version, but if you're playing Mono blue, there's maybe a place for Ehud here, but you are losing out on the Benjamin, or in the kind of pseudo unity, kind of the pre-unity, I guess, on Benjamin and CBN enhancements. If I'm playing a Genesis offense, I'm probably playing Eve as well. If I've got enough Genesis heroes, just because you can usually get like one or two characters off of this if you've got enough heroes in play to reveal. Hela's in the Fight by the Numbers deck, Ira in the Fight by the Numbers banding deck. If I'm playing Ehud, the blue one, I'm probably also playing the blue Ira. Like if I'm not going Genesis, I'm just going blue good stuff, probably also playing Ira. Jacob is pretty solid, playing Genesis enhancement before they block, or doing ban to Captain of the Host. Those are pretty good use cases for him. He goes in pretty much any blue deck, especially Genesis focused. Judah is kind of one of those fringe heroes, but getting Joseph or Benjamin from your discard pile is pretty good. And a lot of time, there is a lot of capture, so if your opponent uses a Writ or Charms on Joseph or Benjamin, he's another way to get a second use out of them as well. So that's I would probably use Judah. I'd probably use Levi. He's in my Gen Egyptians deck that I've built right now, just because capture is pretty prevalent with Unholy Writ and Magic Charms, and so Levi can be a good way to punish your opponent for that. You can just discard a male human evil character from their territory if they've got a capture Genesis hero. So that's pretty strong. Rachel goes to get either Joseph or Benjamin from your deck or discard pile, so another way to keep on using them, keep them alive, or she can ban to Jacob. So she helps make sure that you get them early, which is important, and helps to make sure that you get them back if they're discarded. And if you're playing Rachel, you probably want to play Simeon as well. Punish your opponent a little bit with their hand, and you can also ban to Levi, get some big numbers to play around Servant to Ur or something with. If I'm playing blue good stuff, I'm probably playing Thomas as well. Get those CBN enhancements. But if I'm playing Genesis, probably not. Zebulon, nice. We gotta salute Zebulon, wish him farewell. And with the ignore change, he just doesn't really do enough anymore. Or he's not really usable. Joseph, yep, we know that he's good. Use him. Do the things. There's our Judges Ehud, our gold one that you can get with Angel Under the Oak, or you can make him CBN with Angel with the Secret Name. All important things that you will want to do in a Judge's offense. Eli is usable in a Judge's offense, not necessary, but he's a High Priest, and he's a Tabernacle Priest. I guess that's kind of the important part. So Eli's Sound Advice gets to negate things with him. Gideon is great because of Angel Under the Oak and Samuel's Edict. He will be in every Judges deck you see. Surprisingly, Ibzan probably won't be in a lot of Judges decks that you see, at least on the highest competitive level. If you're just making if you're just putting a Judges deck together, with the cards you have, Ibzan is good, but he doesn't really get initiative. Doesn't have the protection. And there are other ways, if you've got Angel with the Secret Name to make your Judges Enhancements CBN, and there actually aren't that many Judges Enhancements that you actually want to use, because you got Dagger, which is already CBN, and Edict is not Judges, so that's just kind of the way it works. Jair, good for initiative, good for drawing. He's usually one of the first options to go to now in a Judges deck since Samuel was banned. And so you do Angel Under the Oak, draw 2, to Gideon, or to Jair, draw 2. Or you can do Gideon for protection. But Moses also goes into Judge's deck, also could be splashed in some other decks. But, I mean, if you're playing Moses, probably playing Judges. If you're playing Judges, you definitely should be playing Moses, probably also Aaron, and probably you might want another Meek Judge. Judge with no special ability to use for Edict, but there's so many ways to get to Gideon that you don't necessarily need it. The one I would probably, well, two that I would maybe consider are Deborah, a little better initiative, and she's a female, so you can get that female only Lost Soul, or Samson, because Angel with the Secret Name gives him a side access. Simeon, definitely a usable card. There are a lot of good prophets, so that band ability is pretty strong. Angel Under the Oak is a notable good prophet where you can do Simeon, band Angel Under the Oak, exchange for Moses. Moses negates Simeon, but Simeon already banded to Angel Under the Oak, not to Moses, so you would have to negate the exchange on Angel Under the Oak, which you cannot do. So negating the ban does not kick Moses out, which is nice. Generous Widow, one of the few Luke or John heroes in gold that I would maybe use to justify using Meeting the Messiah. Kind of the best combo you can do with Generous Widow is to make a side battle, make your opponent use it while you have Rain Becomes Dust active, so your opponent has to discard 2 cards from hand and the top 2 cards of their deck. Woman at the Well, great soul gen, one of the few soul gen on a hero options. So she honestly might be the only one that actually pulls a Lost Soul from your opponent's deck and scrolls only. Yeah, so she's pretty good. You also have to get an evil character out, but it cannot be negated. It's worth it if you're just digging for Lost Souls. Sorry, Watchful Servant, you're gone. Sorry, Samuel, you're banned. Benaiah, yep, for 5 by the numbers banding, and also for just splashed in, or if you're playing Prophets or green, probably playing Benaiah, especially with the Ezekiel dual enhancements. You've got Drawn Sword and Forest Fire that are both CBP, so they're great with Benaiah. This is the David that I was saying that you can use Nuke Demitis and Unified Kingdom with. You can also use Bravery of David, I guess, but at that point, you're probably using the red one. But Habakkuk, if you're playing Prophets, I'd probably run Habakkuk. Otherwise, probably not. Hosea, if I'm playing Prophets, I'd definitely run Hosea. He's one of the other best soul gen heroes in the format, in Scrolls only. If your opponent has some OT humans with band abilities, it's awesome. If you have some OT humans with evil characters, I guess, with band abilities, it's still pretty decent because you can capture your own to generate some Lost Souls. Here's the Her that I said goes well with Gifts of the Magi. Probably wouldn't play it competitively, but definitely for fun. Isaiah, definitely would use him competitively. Making your Purple Kings protected with that banding stuff is pretty good, but even if you're just doing like Prophets, or you're just doing like Prophets and Angels, then Isaiah is good there as well, especially with Isaiah's call on him. If I'm playing Prophets, probably playing Joel, just because he's got good numbers and he prevents brown evil characters, which is one of the most relevant, or pretty much the most relevant brigade to prevent evil characters of. That came out right, I think. Just because of Uzzah. If you're playing Prophets, I'd play Micah, get some enhancements back. You can't get back a New Beginning, but it banishes itself anyway, so. But if you play it for numbers or something, it's too big. But you can get back like 2 bears and a few other of the great green enhancements. I don't think I mentioned Swords into Plowshares. If you're playing straight Prophets, play Swords into Plowshares as well. I gotta zoom past that one though. Just because green Prophets aren't like... I probably wouldn't play them by themselves. I don't know. Maybe I would. Obadiah's Caves is nice. Nathan, pretty decent card. If your opponent only has like 1 evil character in play, it can be really strong. If you can pair it with Holy Grail, it can be good. Pick apart your opponent's territory a little bit, especially if you have evil cards to spare. If you played Doubt and placed it into your territory, I guess you can just shuffle it and use it again later, but then you're playing Doubt, so good luck with that. No, sorry, St. Patrick. Simeon is okay. If I was playing a Disciples deck, maybe put in Simeon. Probably not. Not enough of them are prophets to really justify it. It's just Peter and John. And Peter's red in Scrolls Only, if you remember. But in my Type 2 deck, I did have a... Alright, I did build a Type 2 deck. I think it was after the I and J starter decks came out, though, so I was able to use the purple Peter. Faithful Servant, maybe in some decks. If I'm like splashing those brigades, then that makes sense. Stops Burial and DOU. Can be okay. Aaron, he goes in Judges decks and pretty much just Judges decks where I've got Moses and I want to trigger Eli's Son Advice. Maybe Urim and Thummim. Ezekiel, definitely if I'm doing Babylonians and all that good stuff, I'm going to be running Ezekiel. Sometimes splash him into Judges decks. Just because, more so when Samuel was a thing because you got the green there too, but yeah, I think he's still usable. Daniel, if New Testament defenses were more popular, then Daniel would definitely be more popular, but there really isn't a whole lot that he negates. You got Wrath of Satan, sure, not a whole lot of people are going to be using that competitively. In the competitive, like, defenses, just a hireling is pretty much the only one that I think Daniel's going to stop. Abigail, one of the few heroes, or one of the few ways, even in general, in Scrolls Only to protect lost souls in your opponent's territory from evil cards. So it stops Banquet, Failed Objective, DOU, Swine Stampede, just hireling, all of those, and Burial. So she's definitely good if you're playing Throne, and well, definitely one of the best drawing heroes in the format as well. You've got enough OT warrior class heroes, and you can ban to David. If only there was a better version of David, but you know, here we are. Disciple, yep, play him in Disciples. Elijah, maybe if you're doing Transfiguration. ET, probably if you're playing Authority of Christ in a mostly purple offense. Yeah, James, son of Zebedee, if you're playing Disciples. He's probably one of the first ones I'd cut after Andrew and no, maybe Peter. Probably not Peter. Probably cut James before Peter, but he's one of the not as good ones. James, son of Alpheus, on the other hand, is quite good. Negates evil characters and weapons, and has great initiative. Can ban Thaddeus. You know, if you ban to the best disciple and do good things yourself, pretty good. John, use this version. I don't think there's any reason to use this one or this one. King Amazing, as he used to be known. Now he's more like King Mediocre. Pretty much just because of Valley of Salt. Like, that's the only reason to use him. Just because you can't choose your own kings of Israel anymore. King David, you know, I've talked about him and how much he got nerfed by the ignore rule. People play enough kings where you don't really want to risk it with him. Probably just use the green David, but I don't know. Maybe just use Priestly Breastplate to... Does that ignore on good cards? I don't know. I think it negates the Eldor. King Hezekiah, he's actually pretty solid. He can ban to Isaiah, and then Isaiah protects him. So, pretty good. CBN protection, another way to do that in Scrolls Only. King Hiram, if you're running Throne and enough, Purple King stuff, yep, you probably want him because he can go get your throne, or you can just draw a card. King Jehoshaphat, I wish he... I talked about this on the podcast, so if you listen to this already, but you can do some funny stuff with him, and can't even think of his name. Elishama the priest, and play some stuff, and then do the banding in and winning the battle. Play Zeal on Phineas and ban Phineas into battle and win. Some of the other Purple Kings I probably wouldn't bother with unless you're like just trying to go straight Purple Kings and Throne. Sure, do that thing with Isaiah, but it's really only good in Type 2 where you can have multiple copies of Unified Kingdom. King Solomon, a great way to get some information on what's in your opponent's hand, and then also go get your Throne of David and actually put it in play so you can use it on the turn that you attack with him. Matthew, of course, Disciples deck, you want him right away so you can start drawing. Mephibosheth, maybe in a king's deck. He's not a king himself, but he is royalty, which is not really notable for anything at this point, but I guess maybe if you're doing classic and you can use the Lord Goes Before You. But he is a 1/1, so you get initiative to play your Authority of Christ, which is good. Not many of the other kings have anywhere near that good initiative. Philip, yep, use him in Disciples. Thaddeus, yep, use him in Disciples. Thomas, Disciples. Simon, Disciples, yep. Melchizedek is kind of nice if you're doing a teal-purple splash deck, which is actually fairly decent because you get AOC, you get Throne of David, and you get all of the feasts to set aside, get some speed. You got Zeal. It's, kind of a fun offense to use, and Melchizedek kind of holds it together. Ahimelech, I guess I should mention Abishai. Yeah, he goes in Fight by the Numbers banding deck. Ahimelech, he's pretty good to band into battle, especially if you have David. But if there's not really a good version of David. I feel like David is kind of like Peter, where it's the decks that you probably want to play him in, he doesn't really fit it unless you're doing like mono red. Then you can use the red David. But it's not. I don't know. It's okay, but it's not a top tier Scrolls offense, I don't think. Asahel, very good. Choose opponent's male human evil character to block, or you can band. So pretty strong, and protects from withdraw. So stops your opponent's Goliath from doing all of the things that they want your opponent's Goliath to do. Here's the David. Yeah, he can only do. He can just use weapons of other brigades. So yeah, he's not quite as. Well, I don't know. Maybe he's more flexible than the green one, but the green one can play some other good stuff and works with hidden treasures. So definitely benefits to both. But if you're mono red, play the red one. Eldai, 5 the numbers banding. Yep. Ishmaya, if you're playing mono red, definitely, and you probably also want to play Heldai then if you're doing that. Get some more heroes in battle to draw more cards. If you're playing mono red, you play Jephthah. There's no rotation, or there's no Scrolls only version of the gold Jephthah. He came out in the starter decks, and so yeah, he's a rotation card. Unfortunately for the Scrolls only judges deck, otherwise he would definitely be in there. He's like he's one of the few heroes I would splash into a deck even if I had 0 enhancements to play on him. Mono red, I would play Spy, get initiative, look at your opponent's hand, play that Bravery of David. If I'm playing mono red, I maybe play the Centurions. Getting evil characters is strong, especially Uzzah. We talked about him, and Uriah. I would play him in mono red, get that Trumpet and Sword going, and wipe out your opponent's defense. Alright, on to the Silva. If I'm playing Isaiah, maybe Angel of His Presence, because he's one of the few Isaiah angels that you have to work with. Angel of Warning, and probably use him in mono silver. Maybe if I'm doing sites or fortresses as well, if I have enough to go get. Angel of Secret Name, obviously in Judge's deck. If I'm like splashing a few judges in, so if I've just got like Gideon and Moses, probably don't need Secret Name. Probably good with auto. But yeah, Attending Angel, good. Go get your best battle winners. Go get your Striking Herald and all that. Captain of the Host, yep, use him in different types of decks. Want warrior class versus not warrior class. If you Captain does negate warrior class evil characters, but he does not negate weapon class enhancements, so you gotta be careful about their 2k horses and all that. Whereas the warriors version would negate that as well. Cherubim, good in with enough prophets or enough priests. You can look at opponent's hand, underdeck or top deck their dominance, so you're not likely to get dom blocked. Old school Gabriel, not quite as good as the I-deck Gabriel that kind of made Josiah's Spirit thing offense viable, where it was just mono silver, and you can just keep on recurring like Angelic Guidance and your battle winners. The old school Gabriel that can discard an enhancement from opponent's deck is pretty good. New Testament, though, the King's one is the Daniel one. So if you're playing a Daniel deck, you want this one. But he only hits evil enhancements, so it's not quite as good. You can only take out Haman's Plot. You can't take out Authority of Christ. New Testament Michael, Old Testament Michael, both do the same thing, but they're, have different uses. You probably want to play the Old Testament one in most cases, but New Testament can be nice for the anti-only lost soul. Old Testament one is good for, using with Daniel. And there's also the other New Testament one that does the same thing. It's just not warrior class. But also his enhancements can't be redirected, which enhancements have to be interrupted in order to be redirected, so it doesn't matter. Seraph is good with Prophets, cannot be negated by an evil card and can be banned. Seraph of the Live Coal cannot be negated, can ban to Isaiah, and also get some of your, get like your Live Coal or your Isaiah's Callback, which is pretty good. The other two Seraphims, probably not worth using. Maybe I'd use the Band of Blue one in, really old school banning deck where it's like Jacob and Tribal Elder, Seraphim, Captain of the Host. Probably not. Otto, yep, he's a classic one and Scrolls only one, and Judges and not Judges, just splash him in wherever. Mono Angels even, I would use him just for the drawing. Strong Angel, same kind of thing as Captain, except also negates banding. And here we are onto Priests. If I'm playing Mono Priests, I'm playing a Abiathar, I'm playing a Ahmaz. A Himalek Priest of Nob is kind of fun because you can get evil enhancements and put them on your heroes. So you can get your 2k horses and put it on one of your warrior class heroes in territory. The downside is just having to set it up by attacking with him. So maybe if you've got 7 trumpets activated, then you can attack with a Himalek. You can get initiative, and then you can use 7 trumpets to abandon the hero that you put 2k horses on, and then you can play something. It's an option. Amorai the High Priest, I would play in Mono Priests. Just get those CBI enhancements. There's the Elishama the Priest that I was talking about. This very niche card. Ezra, good in Lightning Priest. It's a fun card to use there, but probably not useful in many other circumstances. Mono Priest, I'd probably play Ithamar, because go get Tabernacle or Tabernacle Artifact, and then you can activate it right away. If 7 Trumpets was a Tabernacle Artifact, which it says it is, but it's actually not, then I would use Ithamar more often. Like, I'd be more likely to use him, but unfortunately, that is not the case. There aren't too many other Tabernacle Artifacts that I'd really want to be activated during battle. Joida, yes, one of my favorite priests of all time. Right up there, close to Jeshua, at least, with the classic format. Scrolls only, not really useful, but with posties in classic, oh yeah, he's in there. He's there. Getting that Feast of Booths back. Joshua the High Priest. If you're playing Zerubbabel's Temple, I guess you're playing this guy, but and you're definitely playing Joshua. Joshua's a decent splash hero. You can play Zeal on him to get CBN on him as well as Phineas. Melchizedek, probably playing the purple one as well in most cases, but if I don't have any purple stuff, like if I'm just mono teal, then you just play the teal one, Phineas. Yep, use him with Zeal. Priest of Christ, if I'm playing mono teal, probably in some other decks I might splash him in. I have enough other teal stuff, like if I'm splashing some feasts. Alright, music stuff. I really wish there were more music enhancements that were actually good, so that Asaph would be more useful, but he's pretty solid if you do want to go a musician's route, but competitively, musicians, like I said before, not really a whole lot there. Kenaniah is the best tool that they have, and even he's not enough to make it worthwhile, I don't think. Ethan is nice. You get the music enhancements back. He-Man can use any enhancement involving music. Jail is not great, but he's he gets initiative at least once. And yeah. Banding, yep. 5 numbers banding, yep, it's in there. My high ride. Daniel offense wasn't really a thing in Classic, but there were some heroes for it, so you can have the Daniel heroes, but they're not all that strong. They just band to each other. Susanna would be nice if female NT heroes were a thing in Scrolls only. Classic, she did get a legacy rare, so here's a Ruable, good old Posties. If only he was gold, then he still probably wouldn't be used because the other Ruable is better. But and Posties aren't really a thing in Classic. All right, on to Lost Souls. We are getting towards the finish line here, people, and this video is getting long. And I'm ready to go to sleep pretty soon here, but we're gonna finish it. I was talking about splitting it up earlier, and yeah, we don't have to do that. We don't have to get there. So withdraw Lost Soul is kind of borderline, but if you are hiding other Lost Souls and you have Armor Bearer and Goliath, and maybe even Outpost too, then it's kind of maybe playable. Goliath is kind of the only situation in which I'd really consider it playable. Maybe if I'm using Herod's and Herod's Treachery, but probably not. No. I mean, Meek Lost Souls aren't really a thing at that point. Shuffler, it seems good, but it hits your opponent's Lost Souls as well, and it also means that your opponent can use Son of God to block you, which is not ideal. They can play Son of God New Jerusalem during your attack to shuffle all of their Lost Souls. Yeah, so probably don't want to use that. Exchanger, yep, definitely a Scrolls only staple, and even good in rotation as well. It's also called Wanderer. I think it's technically called Wanderer, but most people call it Exchanger, or at least I call it Exchanger at least half the time, if not more. Anti-burial, top deck, no. Hand discard, maybe. It's definitely, if I'm using a few sites, I'll probably have the hand discard in there. Star 4 is okay if you're trying to kind of limit the number of Lost Souls that your opponent has the ability to play their dominance on. So, Son of God can't hit NT only in Star 4, New Jerusalem can't hit those two, or female only. Hopper, yep, you will definitely want Hopper in Scrolls only. Like, is there... The only situation in which I might consider not playing it is if I'm running the Fight by the Numbers Lost Soul, but even then, I'm probably playing Hopper, because if it catches mine, it's catching theirs. At least, hopefully. Thorns is one that I would... it probably doesn't get played most of the time, because people want to play Horma, or DOU, or Suicidal Swine Stampede, but I think in... Gen Egyptians, it's good because you're not really planning to shuffle or exchange your Lost Souls. If you're not playing Thorns, you maybe want to be running Fight by the Numbers, which I guess we'll get to shortly here. CBP Lost Soul, you definitely want that. It's good against all the Fight by the Numbers stuff that people are running, and you probably want to run a Covenant in your deck for your opponent's CBP if you're doing a lot of your own Fight by the Numbers stuff. Punisher, pretty good. People like to splash. It's not amazing. Like you would think it's better than it actually ends up being, but you still want it in a lot of cases, and it's good against Fight by the Numbers banding, which is an offense that a good number of defenses will struggle to answer. So just another hurdle for your opponent to have to work through. Female only, yep, you probably want to play that. There are not a whole lot of females that will get played in competitive Scrolls only. Abigail is maybe the main one, biggest one, I guess. Deborah, Rachel, that's close to it. Sorry, ladies. Shut Door is decent. Another kind of, it's similar to the Withdraw, where it's situational if you're trying to hide Lost Souls. Pigs. Good old Pigs. Burn probably not all that great unless you really build around it, but if you build around it too much, then you're probably losing out on some value, and if you don't draw pigs, then there's not enough like layers to really do it with to make it worthwhile, I don't think. Five the numbers, I was talking about it before. Maybe if you've got an OT offense, especially, it could be worthwhile to negate your opponent's NT only lost souls, negate your opponent's thorns, that you can use your DOU and all that. First round is also kind of decent. Another, you just want to limit how much access your opponent has, because there isn't as much soul gen in scrolls only. So it's one that's usually worth playing if you've got the space for it. Sight doubler, if you're using sights, it's pretty good, especially with Horma, because you can put it and another lost soul in there and underdeck 2 lost souls with Horma. Sight guard is actually kind of an underrated one. It's one that Josiah used in his spirit thing, add to battle thing. So you got Madness, you got Gates of Hell, you got Sight guard. You can put it in a rainbow sight like Dragon Raid or Promised Land, and then during a rescue attempt at that site, you can add that character to battle. If it's a multi-brigade site, then it's always a rescue attempt at that site. So you can just add the character to battle whenever. You got Revealer, another important soul gen piece that is pretty much a staple in scrolls only. 2-liner used to be a staple, not playable anymore because it is banned. Damascus, maybe play it with King Resin if you're doing Syrians, but yeah, probably not. Horma is probably the most playable site, kind of right up there with Nazareth and scrolls only. Pharaoh's Prison, if you're doing Gen Egyptians, you want it for your Dreaming Pharaoh. There aren't really enough NT defenses in scrolls only to make Chorazin, Caesarea Philippi, we'll get to that, and some of the other ones worth it. Egypt, yep, you want that with your Egyptians for your Enslaved by Egypt, and also just to lock your opponent out a little bit if they're not doing like Judges or something. Nazareth, yep, definitely playable. It is symmetrical, so just be aware when you're building your deck that you don't have too much searching, or you're not relying on searching too much. That's why I like cards like Divination and Noctimitus and just drawing to help out with that. Samaria, if you're doing a Gates of Samaria deck. Dragon Raid, if you lack site access or ways to deal with sites, you might want a Dragon Raid or New Jerusalem or Promised Land just to be safe. Or an Ends of the Earth, I guess, if you're doing NT. But Canaan, if you're doing Canaanites, sure. Marketplace, no. Pergamum, if you're doing Site Lock, just straight up Site Lock. You've got 7 sites and you're trying to lock your opponent out, you probably want to use Pergamum. Ashdod if you're using Philistines and splashing, but a lot of times you're just going to be using Philistines and only black enhancements, so you don't really need Ashdod. Caesarea Philippi only works with your NT. Lion's Den for that Persian Presidents, let's go. One of my favorite cards that is not really playable anymore, but there was a fun deck that I built in Type 2 with it a while back. Golgotha, it's got a few more, like the use for it was really only just recurring enhancements. You would get something from your discard pile, place it on Golgotha during battle, and then play DOU to shuffle it back into your deck. That's pretty much it. Herod's Dungeon, for playing Herods, it's great, but you're also playing Herod, so it's not great. And we got to the end. Oh boy, I gotta stretch. You should stretch with me, unless you're driving or you're working or something. I don't know. You should probably still stretch. I mean, stretching is good for you. Yeah, we're almost at 3 hours. I'm trying to compete with John, I guess, and I really need to go get some water and probably go to sleep. So I'm gonna do that. I hope you guys at least somewhat enjoyed this, or at least bore with me through the end. I hope you weren't bored. I feel like that's a confusion that could be made there with the past tense of bear. I feel like it is bared. That's your homework. Tell me in the comments what the past tense of bear is, because I'm too lazy to Google it, apparently. Alright, we went through every single card in Scrolls that you could possibly use in Scrolls only, and even a few extra banned cards. And a Son of God that's not supposed to be in there. But hopefully Hendrix was able to watch this before Classic Weekend so that he could do his due diligence for commentating. I think I talked about every single card that you are at all likely to see. So if you see a card that I didn't specifically mention that I just went over, then you can call me out on it. But I doubt you will. So if you are interested in playing Scrolls only, or even interested in playing Classic, these are some cards that you should be aware of. I kind of mentioned the Classic ones specifically, as that's the official format that people are probably more likely to be playing. But Scrolls Only is a fun format. I've been enjoying kind of delving back into it for this event. And I'll probably just keep my Scrolls Only decks that I've built together to just have to play once in a while. I probably won't do any more Scrolls Only decks on the channel, at least for, not for like any regular, at any regular rate. But if there are any fun games, or if people specifically requested or have a deck they want to try out, you can let me know, and maybe we can get that worked out. But my focus at this point now is going to be just building decks for nationals, and really, I mean, showing you guys what kind of stuff to play at nationals, because this Classic Weekend is kind of the start of the hype train up to nationals, going through the big tournament season coming up here, and I want to do what I can to make sure you guys feel prepared and confident with your decks, the strategies you want to play. So that's what we're going to be doing. And of course, we'll still have some fun along the way. Play some trolley or combo decks as they come up. But yeah, that's where we're going to wrap up the video for today. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed it. I hope to see you at Classic Weekend if you're going to be there. And if you're not, then you can check out the streaming that will be going on here on this channel on Friday and Saturday. So, yeah, call it a night. Have a good one.